Chapter 821. The carriage left the Yuhui nunnery, turned a corner and galloped down the mountain. Not long after they left, an old maid rushed to the parking place. Seeing that there was no carriage of Duke Xing's mansion in the parking place, she stamped her feet anxiously and went back to report to her madam helplessly. Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia didn't know that the old maid from Minister Zhao's mansion had come to them and wanted to stop them from going down the mountain in such a hurry. Now they were sitting in the carriage, and the atmosphere was quite peaceful. Xiao Wanru looked preoccupied and didn't take the initiative to talk. On the contrary, Xiao Jia was quite talkative at this time. She asked from time to time about Xiao Wanru's past in Qin's mansion. Xiao Jia also heard about those things from others. She didn't care about it at first, but now she suddenly became interested and asked very clearly. However, Xiao Wanru didn't seem to want to answer. Later, she got a little annoyed and said impatiently, "Second sister, be careful with your health. You'd better take a rest first. We'll find a clinic to treat you first. It seems to be a minor injury, but it may be a big one later." Speaking of the wound, Xiao Jia became nervous. She reached out to press her forehead with a handkerchief, which hurt a lot. She couldn't help but feel angry again. Madam of Duke Xing was so hateful that she beat and scolded her. When she was young, she asked the old maid to punish her just because she was a daughter of a concubine. If she were a daughter of the legal wife, she wouldn't dare to treat her like this. Among the misses of Duke Xing's mansion, she was the only daughter of a concubine. This was also the reason why she used to follow Xiao Yanru closely and didn't dare to disobey Xiao Yanru. Fifth sister, how did Madame Shui of Qin's mansion become a co-wife? After going around for so long and changing so many directions, Xiao Jia finally couldn't bear it anymore and asked bluntly. Now it was a good opportunity. Madame of Duke Xing was basically useless. Her second branch had to have a capable madam. The more Xiao Jia thought about it, the more likely it was. Moreover, she had given up her marriage to her third sister. For this reason, third aunt had to help her concubine. Moreover, third aunt's health was not good. If someone helped her and didn't trample on her, third aunt should be willing. It's not easy to be a secondary wife. Madame D is in poor health and has been recuperating. Aunt Shui deals with all the affairs in the mansion. In the eyes of the servants, Aunt Shui is the principal wife. She goes out to socialize with others. Xiao Wanru closed her eyes slightly, leaned against the wall of the carriage and answered casually. Both of them were in poor health and were the secondary wives. In the end, Madame D was almost pushed out of the position of the principal wife. The servants in the mansion and people outside the mansion only knew Madame Shui. Who would remember the principal wife, Madame D? Wasn't this what she wanted? If Madame Shui could do it, so could his concubine. Xiao Jia fell silent, bit her lip, and thought about the possibility of such a thing carefully. She didn't dare to think about it before, but now she felt that it was just so. Since others could do it, so could her concubine. Moreover, she could help her. When Madame Shui became the secondary wife, she had no children to help her. Thinking of this, her heart calmed down. Originally, she didn't want to make a big deal out of the matter of Jiang Shi injuring her, but now, she felt that it was better to make a big deal out of it. She reached out and pulled at her clothes. They were wet and hadn't dried yet. Although the innermost part of her clothes didn't seem to be wet, it was very uncomfortable to wear them like this. Her forehead was very painful and swollen with a protruding feeling, which made her feel very uncomfortable. But these discomforts couldn't compare with Xiao Jia's wild ambition at this time. Those thoughts that she didn't dare to think about entangled her like crazy weeds. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered. Looking at Xiao Jia's excited and almost twisted expression through her long and curly eyelashes, she silently raised the corners of her mouth and closed her eyes. Xiao Jia's ambition was aroused. That was good. It was not good for her that Madame Jiang of Duke Xing's mansion dominated the family. Xiao Jia's injury didn't go to Duke Xing's mansion, so she first found a clinic for treatment. Seeing Xiao Jia, who was in a mess, being helped out of the carriage, all the people who saw it were talking about it. At first glance, they could tell that this miss didn't look very good. Her face was pale, and the servant girl covered her head with a handkerchief. The red and swollen part of her head couldn't be covered, which was very clear. At first glance, people could tell that water had been splashed on her. From Xiao Jia's outfit, people could tell that she was a miss from an aristocratic family with an extraordinary identity. Now that she was in such a mess, something must have happened. The clinic was at the city gate, and there were many people who saw it. Fortunately, it was winter. Although her outer clothes were wet, they didn't wet the whole clothes. Moreover, along the way, some parts seemed to be a little dry. Xiao Wanru, wearing a veil, helped Xiao Jia into the clinic with the servant girl. As soon as the doctor in the clinic saw their clothes, he knew that they were not ordinary people. He hurriedly invited them in and looked at Xiao Jia's wound. It was only a little broken skin, but because it was so swollen, it looked particularly serious. After giving her medicine, the doctor bandaged her wound. Yu Jie took the initiative to pay the consultation fee. "What's wrong with your miss?" The person who received the consultation fee was a schoolboy. He looked curiously at Xiao Jia, who was still in the inner room, and asked. It was indeed rare to see a miss from an aristocratic family injured like this. Moreover, she had just come in from outside the city gate, so the schoolboy was full of curiosity. "It's not our Mississippi. It's our second Mississippi. She went up the mountain to see the madam of our Duke Xing's mansion today." Yu Jie said vaguely, looking unwilling to say more, and handed over an ingot of broken silver. The schoolboy's eyes lit up, and he became more interested. They often talked about the interesting things of Duke Xing's mansion. The first miss was the first beauty in the capital city, but it was a pity that she had entered the palace now. It was said that she was in a low position. Some people had said that she would definitely be the prince's consort, but now the fifth miss was married to Prince Chen. Because there were so many rumors about Duke Xing's mansion these days, even the schoolboy knew that the second miss of Duke Xing's mansion was a daughter of a concubine. "Your second miss was beaten when she went up the mountain to see Madam of Duke Xing?" The schoolboy asked with his eyes wide open. "Don't talk nonsense. She was not beaten. She accidentally smashed a teacup." Yu Jie glared at him angrily, lowered her voice and scolded him. When she finished speaking, she found that she had let the cat out of the bag, so she hurriedly shook her head to signal the schoolboy not to talk nonsense. The schoolboy nodded, indicating that he would not talk nonsense. He leaned over to Yu Jie and asked excitedly in a low voice, "Was it smashed by Madam of Duke Xing?" "It seems that the second miss was seriously injured." "How could she be so cruel?" No wonder others said that Madam of Duke Xing had a bad character and was punished to go up the mountain to cultivate in seclusion. Being able to get such secret information, the schoolboy felt excited. If someone asked about it later, it would be exclusive news. "Don't spread it, or I will have to be punished." Yu Jie had lost her tongue just now. At this time, she couldn't completely ignore the schoolboy's question, but she still had to warn him. "Don't worry, I am not the kind of person who talks too much. I just think that the second miss of your mansion looks a little pitiful. How could there be such a madam? She is too cruel." The schoolboy nodded repeatedly, indicating that he could not stand it anymore, so he asked in this way. "Today, our old madam asked us two misses to go up the mountain to see madam together." Unexpectedly, after a few words, she became like this. "Alas." Yu Jie shook her head, seeming to be speechless. But when the schoolboy continued to ask, she did not say anything else. Hearing this, the schoolboy's heart was itching, but Yu Jie was a tight-lipped person. No matter how he asked, it was useless. After paying the money, he returned to the inner room. The doctor inside was also telling Xiao Jia, "Miss, be careful in the future. Don't touch water. But when I was smashed by a teacup, I got a lot of water. What should I do?" Xiao Jia looked flustered and said more casually than exhortation. The old doctor frowned. In fact, he was not willing to hear this kind of thing. There were many secrets in aristocratic families. The less people knew about this kind of thing, the better. I'm talking about the future. Miss, you don't have to worry about the past. I have cleaned up the past for you. The old man said. Is it really okay? Why does my head hurt so much? Will it cause other diseases? Xiao Jia reached out to cover her head and said with some pain. This should be fine. The old doctor had just felt Xiao Jia's pulse and felt that there was no big problem. He didn't think it was a big problem. It shouldn't have hurt his brain. But it still hurts. Not only here, but also the back of my head. I don't know if I dodged when it was smashed and hit the door frame behind me. Xiao Jia touched the back of her head with her hand again. The old doctor was speechless for a while. The back of her head hit the door frame, so the back of her head should also be hurt. He asked the servant girl to massage it gently. It seemed that it hurt here and there, so the old doctor did not dare to make a diagnosis at will. Miss, I'm treating some simple diseases. If you really feel pain, you'd better invite a famous doctor or an imperial physician in the palace to have a look. The old doctor did not dare to make a diagnosis. Should I invite an imperial physician in the palace? Xiao Jia burst into tears. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief and cried. Or we can invite a famous doctor in the city. The old doctor thought that Xiao Jia was anxious and could not invite an imperial physician, so he said that it was difficult to invite an imperial physician. It was relatively easy to invite a famous doctor. Second sister, what do you think? Xiao Wanru said. It was up to Xiao Jia to make the decision. When they saw the clinic just now, it was Xiao Jia who took the initiative to cover her head and said that she couldn't stand the pain before getting out of the carriage for treatment. It was too far from the city gate and there were too many people. Xiao Jia sobbed a few more times and said in pain, let's go back first and ask grandma to invite an imperial physician to have a look. I have a bad headache. It seems that something is shaking when I move. It's very uncomfortable. Okay, then let's go back quickly. Xiao Wanru nodded and reached out to help Xiao Jia up. After thanking the old doctor, she and Xiao Jia, servant girl, supported her to walk to the carriage parked at the door. Chapter 822. When they got on the carriage and the carriage left, the people behind them began to discuss. The most important thing was that the students in the clinic spread the news. In addition to Yujia's words, he also overheard the conversation between his master and the injured Mississippi. This miss was so pitiful. Not only did she hurt her head, but it seemed that her head was hurt inside. It was said that this was the second miss of Duke Xing's mansion. She went out of the city today to visit Madame of Duke Xing, who was cultivating there. As for why she was smashed, it was said that Madame of Duke Xing was unhappy because of old Madame's words, so she picked up the teacup and smashed the second Mississippi. The daughter of a concubine was so pitiful. She was abused by the mistress of the family. Madame of Duke Xing was really not a good person. Madame of Duke Xing used to say that she was kind to others, but how could she be really kind? She should be a person with a sweet face but a bitter heart, which sounded the same as her daughter. However, they were mother and daughter, so of course they were the same. When Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia arrived at Duke Xing's mansion, it was said that Madame of Duke Xing had been dissatisfied with old Madame. This time, she deliberately smashed the daughter of a concubine to teach old Madame a lesson so that old Madame would agree to take her back to the mansion. As for the life and death of a daughter of a concubine, no one would care. Xiao Wanru stopped the carriage halfway and asked Yujia to buy some medicinal materials for Xiao Jia. At this time, Xiao Jia was full of pretending to be sick, so she didn't care much. She nodded at once and leaned against the wall of the carriage, weakly. In order to take care of her, her servant girl also stayed in the carriage. Yujia got out of the carriage and went to the pharmacy to buy some medicinal materials. Then she asked the shop assistant in the pharmacy to invite Madame Dong, the shopkeeper of Butterfly Clothing Shop not far away. After passing a few words to Xiao Wanru, she returned to the small carriage behind. Without Xiao Jia, or servant girl, it was much more convenient for Yu Jie. When the carriage arrived at Duke Xing's mansion, it was said that the second Mrs. Head was smashed and bleeding. At this time, she was so dizzy that she could not even walk steadily. Immediately, two old maids came out, carefully helped Xiao Jia into the mansion, and then went all the way to old Madam's Chuntang courtyard. In the Chuntang courtyard, old Madam was so angry that her face turned blue. Xiao Wanru and Madam of Jiang were fine after going out for such a trip. However, Xiao Jia, who was the least likely to have an accident, had an accident. How could old Madam not be angry? The people at the door said that Xiao Jia, almost fainted, so old Madam knew that something had happened. At this time, when old Madam saw Xiao Jia, being escorted in a mess, she only felt that her eyebrows were beating faintly. It was originally a good thing, but it inexplicably became like this again. How could old Madam not be angry? What the hell is going on? Old Madam snapped at Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia, who had just come in. Grandma! Xiao Jia, cried and fell to the ground. Madam wants to kill me. At this point, she was sobbing uncontrollably. Her whole body twitched twice on the ground, as if she was about to faint. The white bandage that the doctor in the clinic had specially wrapped around her head was particularly conspicuous. The doctor in the clinic was also afraid that Xiao Jia, would really have an accident, so he specially wrapped her with a few more layers of bandage, making her look like she was dragging a white mourning cloth. At the sight of this, old Madam was so angry that she felt suffocated. She was not dead yet, but came out to cry at this time. It was really depressing. What the hell is going on? Tell me. Old Madam patted the table heavily. Xiao Jia, really wanted to faint at this time. In the past, although she had made up her mind to make a big fuss, she, who had never had any influence in front of old Madam, suddenly felt guilty at this time and wished that she could put the blame on Xiao Wanru. However, she did not faint when she came in, and she did not dare to pretend to faint at this time. She could only kneel on the ground and cry, pretending not to hear old Madam's words, hoping that she could deceive her. She did not dare to answer old Madam's words, for fear that old Madam would find some flaws. Fifth girl, you tell me. Seeing that Xiao Jia, did not speak but only cried, old Madam's eyes fell on Xiao Wanru. Compared with Xiao Jia, Xiao Wanru's expression was almost as calm as water. Seeing this contrast, old Madam felt her heart twitch fiercely again. Shouldn't it be Xiao Wanru who cried at this time? Shouldn't it be Xiao Wanru who cried to her about her innocence? Madam of Zhao injured herself and was saved. At that time, only Xiao Wanru was in the room. In addition, what Xiao Wanru had ordered before, after connecting the dots, didn't it mean that Xiao Wanru wanted to force her elders to death for some of her mother's dowry? Miss Xiao of Zhao's mansion, who was guarding outside the courtyard, heard it clearly. Xiao Wanru could not explain herself, so she should cry in front of her at this time. But the fact was completely different from what old Madam had expected. How could it be like this? Grandma, second sister, and I didn't say a few words after entering the room, and second Madam got angry. At that time, she picked up a teacup and threw it at second sister and me. I avoided it quickly, but second sister was hurt. After that, second sister left in tears. Miss Xiao Shiran and I conveyed Grandma's words together and left. Xiao Wanru said simply. You went in with Miss Xiao. Old Madam keenly caught some special meaning in her words. Nanny Yu, who was standing behind old Madam, looked up at Xiao Wanru with the corner of her eyes twitching. She lowered her head, looked at the corner of the ground in front of her, and stood still. I went in with Miss Xiao. I was afraid that second Madam would go crazy and hit me again, so I took Miss Xiao with me to boost her courage. Xiao Wanru nodded and said. Silly. This is a scandal of our Duke Xing's mansion. How can we let misses from other mansions join in the fun? Old Madam patted the corner of the table hard, glared at Xiao Wanru and scolded her. Grandma, Do you mean that I would rather be beaten by second madam and be like second sister than let others see second madam's crazy look now? Xiao Wanru analyzed coldly. Her words made old madam choke and speechless for a moment. Of course, she could not say that she would rather be like this. I heard that Sister Zhao Zhu is my eldest brother's future daughter-in-law and the future sister-in-law of our mansion. Moreover, Grandma also asked Miss Xiao to accompany us, which meant that she acquiesced to Miss Xiao. I thought that since Miss Xiao acquiesced, I took Miss Xiao in with me. Xiao Wanru said frankly, as if she really just thought so. Old madam felt suffocated in her chest and then suppressed it. She could only stare at Xiao Wanru with hatred. Xiao Wanru did not care about old madam's hatred and anger. After they looked at each other, Xiao Wanru showed a confused expression, as if she did not understand what she had done wrong until now. Old madam became more and more annoyed. Did you say what I asked you to say to Madam of Duke Xing's mansion? I did as Grandma said. Xiao Wanru nodded and said. What did she say? Where did those things go? Old madam said with a trace of gloom in her eyes. She slowly restrained her anger. As long as this matter could not be solved, Xiao Wanru still had to go to Yuhui Nunnery. At that time, there would still be a chance. Thinking of this, she also calmed down. Second madam did not say anything, but she looked a little angry. I was afraid that something would happen, so I took first Miss Xiao out with me. Xiao Wanru said. Then you go again next time. This matter has to be solved. Old madam ordered with a sullen face, tomorrow. I will ask someone to accompany you there tomorrow. This time, you must get the correct answer from Madam of Duke Xing's mansion. If she does not say it, you can ask again. We can solve the matter after getting the answer. She intended to let Xiao Wanru come to Madam of Duke Xing's mansion again. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth and showed a cold smile. Grandma, it's useless for me to say those words. Second madam will not listen to me and will be angry with me. Who else can go if not you? All the people in the mansion are old, sick and injured. They can't solve the affairs in the mansion, so how can they deal with the affairs outside the mansion? Old madam said angrily. Grandma, there are actually other people in the mansion. Second sister's concubine can also help. Since there are so many things in the mansion, it is not right to let third aunt handle it alone. Xiao Wanru took the opportunity to suggest. Xiao Jia stretched her ears to listen to their conversation. Now when she heard her concubine mentioned, she immediately cried in a loud voice. She was so sad that she could not even speak. Second girl, go and have a rest first. Take your father's invitation card and ask the imperial physician in the imperial palace to have a look. Old madam frowned and said to Xiao Jia, unhappily. Originally, Xiao Jia, was a ready-made assistant. At this time, not only did she not help, but she also made a fuss. Since old madam had spoken, two old maids came over and carefully helped Xiao Jia down. Although Xiao Jia wanted to stay and listen to Xiao Wanru and old madam's words, she had no reason to do so at this time. She could only cry and follow the two old maids down with great grievance. However, she had made up her mind to seize such a favorable opportunity in any case. After Xiao Jia left, old madam felt much quieter. She frowned and ignored Xiao Wanru's previous words. She said, if you can't deal with the matter of your mother's dowry, your grandmother will make trouble again. In any case, you have to ask Madam of the Jiang family to make it clear. You can go there tomorrow. If you are timid and dare not go alone, I will ask someone to accompany you. She said this not as a question but as a decision for Xiao Wanru. No matter whether Xiao Wanru wanted to go or not, she had to force her to go there. She was trying to suppress Xiao Wanru with her identity as an elder. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart and understood old madam's intention. She wanted to force her to go up the mountain again and let Madam of the Jiang family frame her. Although old madam did not do it herself, she was vicious and heinous. However, Xiao Wanru would not let her succeed. She coughed in a low voice and was about to speak when she suddenly saw an old maid rush in and say, "Old madam, bad news." Great Elder Princess took a group of people to Duke's study and said that she was going to tear down Duke's study. "Go and have a look." "What?" Old madam suddenly stood up and said anxiously. "Old madam, go and have a look. Great Elder Princess and Duke are blocking Duke's way in the study now. Duke asked me to come and report to you quickly." Chapter 8:23. Old madam rushed to the study angrily. Although there were many people standing at the door of the study, they were quiet and polite. Seeing old madam coming over, all the maids and old maids bowed respectfully. It could not be seen that the old maids in the mansion had come to report before. Old madam looked at the people of Great Elder Princess's mansion suspiciously and led Xiao Wanru into the study. Hearing the sound at the door, the two people in the study turned around at the same time. Xiao Jing was sitting in the main seat, and Great Elder Princess was sitting in the guest seat. Both of them looked sullen, especially Xiao Jing, who not only looked sullen but also frowned tightly. The atmosphere in the whole study was very depressing. Seeing old madam come in, Xiao Jing gave up the main seat and sat down in front of the chair on the side. After sitting down, old madam looked at her son and then at Great Elder Princess. "Great Elder Princess, what do you want to discuss with my son today?" Old madam was a shrewd person. She suppressed her anger and asked. "Zhuozhua, come to grandma and sit down." Great Elder Princess waved to Xiao Wanru, who was walking at the back. Xiao Wanru walked over obediently and sat down beside Great Elder Princess. Old madam was so angry that she wanted to get angry, but she suppressed her anger after thinking about it. She didn't know why Great Elder Princess wanted to talk to her son at this time. This had never happened before. In the past, when she and Great Elder Princess were at loggerheads, her son had never been involved. Now the situation was unclear, so old madam did not dare to get angry immediately. She suppressed her anger, picked up the teacup newly served by the servant, flicked off the foam on it, slightly touched her mouth, and then put it down, waiting for Great Elder Princess to speak. After she put down the teacup, Great Elder Princess said slowly, "What do you think, Duke?" "Great Elder Princess, this kind of thing is a matter of the inner court, right? It was my mother who was in charge of it, and she had already expressed her position to the Great Elder Princess. Isn't it too much for the Great Elder Princess to use this matter against me?" Xiao Jing said coldly. His usual smile had long disappeared. "Too much." It was said that Zhuozhua went there today and almost got into trouble. The second miss of the mansion was smashed and couldn't get up until now. If Zhuozhua didn't react fast enough, she might also be smashed and couldn't get up at this time. "Duke Xing, is your mansion going to ask for dowry or to be smashed by others to vent your anger? If you don't like Zhuozhua, I can let her stay in my princess mansion to wait for marriage." Ruyan Great Elder Princess said coldly. The teacup in her hand fell heavily on the table, making a crisp sound. Old madam's face tightened. How did Great Elder Princess know what happened just now? She looked at Xiao Wanru suspiciously. Seeing that Xiao Wanru just sat there with her head down, she suddenly felt that it didn't seem to be Xiao Wanru's message. Could it be that Great Elder Princess knew that they were going to the Yuhui nunnery today and also sent someone to the Yuhui nunnery? Did Great Elder Princess's men see Xiao Jia coming out after she was smashed? Thinking of this, it seemed to make sense. Old madam couldn't help cursing Xiao Jia in her heart. She was smashed and made such a scene. Now it was like a storm in the city. "Great Elder Princess, I will definitely ask for Wanru's dowry back. Don't worry," Xiao Jing said in a deep voice. He directly ignored Great Elder Princess's proposal to let Xiao Wanru go to Great Elder Princess's mansion to wait for marriage. In any case, he would not let Xiao Wanru go to Great Elder Princess's mansion to get married. "Don't worry. I really can't, rest assured. This madam of your mansion must hate Zhuozhua so that she would make such a scene when asking for the dowry. The dowry originally belongs to my son. Since Zhuozhua will be smashed when she goes to ask for it, I will go there and see how arrogant this madam of your mansion is." How dare she smash people at this time? Great Elder Princess did not give in. This kind of thing can be said to be unheard of and unheard of. The emperor has to report that the madam of the second branch of Duke Xing's mansion not only seized the dowry of the first branch of Duke Xing's mansion, but also desperately refused to give in and wanted to leave the dowry to the second branch of Duke Xing. Duke Xing really married a good wife who protects her husband. Unfortunately, she is too tyrannical. Old Madam understood. Her face changed dramatically and she looked nervous. Great Elder Princess meant that she wanted to expose this matter that could be handled in the backyard to the front court. Great Elder Princess, this is a backyard matter. You can come to me. There is no need to make things difficult for my son. Old Madam interrupted. Old Madam, you are wrong. This is no longer a backyard matter. Many objects in my son's dowry were made in the palace. This madam of your mansion has never returned them. I have reason to suspect that she has ulterior motives. For this kind of thing, the emperor cares the most. How can I not report it? Great Elder Princess turned her eyes and fell on Old Madam. She sneered and did not intend to give in. Old Madam was so angry that her face turned blue. She understood the meaning of her words. She actually implied that Duke Xing's mansion had the intention to be disobedient. How could Duke Xing's mansion bear such a heavy accusation? Although Old Madam was very angry, she knew that it was not the time to get angry. She swallowed the anger in her heart and even forced a stiff smile on her face, trying to ease the atmosphere. Great Elder Princess, our mansion will give you an explanation about the dowry. It will definitely satisfy you. At this time, she had to give in. Judging from Great Elder Princess's momentum, she really intended to bring this matter to the emperor. Old Madam, now it is not a problem of the dowry. I have reason to suspect that the second madam of your mansion has always been malicious to my son. Since she wants to occupy my son's dowry, it is very likely that she has done something after my son returns to the mansion. My son died after giving birth to Hao. Maybe, she has done something. When Great Elder Princess said this, she was sad and her eyes turned red. She did have this reason to suspect it. She had never suspected it before because she had never thought about it. Everyone thought that the existence of Infanta Qinghua would not be an eyesore after the death of the heir of Duke Xing. Now thinking about it, if it was for the dowry, her daughter was really an eyesore to the second madam at that time. Originally, the whole mansion was controlled by the second madam. When her daughter came back, it was in such a situation. Even if Great Elder Princess sent servants to serve her, compared with the second madam, the servants were still much weaker. It was very easy for the second madam to do something secretly. I will report it to the emperor and ask him to investigate this matter again. The second madam of your mansion is so tyrannical, and she has to leave the court. If it is found out that my son's death is really related to her, she will have to pay with her life, and your Duke Xing's mansion will also be guilty. Great Elder Princess said with hatred. Xiao Wanru lowered her head, her eyes slightly red, and her cherry lips tightly pressed into a line. Originally, she had sent a letter to Great Elder Princess to say so in order to force Duke Xing's mansion. Now hearing Great Elder Princess's words, her heart suddenly moved, and she inexplicably felt a little sad and suspicious. Was it really the reason? She clenched the handkerchief in her hand tightly and then slowly let it go, with her eyes cold. Great Elder Princess, don't worry. We won't lack Infanta Qinghua's dowry. You can quote a price for the part that doesn't match. Our mansion will definitely compensate for it even if we have to spend everything we have. My eldest brother is dead, and Wanru is his only daughter, so she should do the same. I don't know what happened before. If I knew, I would never allow such a thing to happen. Xiao Jing stood up, bowed respectfully to Great Elder Princess, and said frankly. His words were very straightforward, and he did not evade at all. He took all the responsibility. Old Madam was so anxious that she wanted to stop him. If it was really filled in, a small half of Duke Xing's mansion's property would be gone. Xiao Jing winked at Old Madam, telling her not to stop him. Old Madam had no choice but to frown and lower her head. Xiao Wanru watched the scene calmly, and her eyes became colder and colder. Although old madam was domineering, she obeyed her second uncle's words. The meaning of this was definitely worth investigating. In the past, her second uncle didn't care about anything, as if he didn't know anything. He seemed to have a good temperament and was obedient to Madame Dowager. Even if he was deceived by others, it was understandable. Now it seemed that this second uncle was not so easy to be deceived. He was also very strong-willed. The so-called obedience to Madame Dowager was just on the surface. Great Elder Princess looked at Xiao Jing coldly and did not intend to let him go. Duke Xing, the Jiang family is also involved in this matter. Whether the Jiang family framed my son or not, you have to give me an explanation. Rest assured, Great Elder Princess. You can directly investigate it. If it is really related to the Jiang family, our mansion will never let it go. Xiao Jing said with a solemn face. His words were extremely benevolent. If Great Elder Princess continued to harp on this matter, it would seem that she was too harsh. After all, the Jiang family was not in a good situation now. She had already been sent away. Xiao Jing had no reason to defend the Jiang family. Hearing his words, Great Elder Princess's face was still gloomy, but she did not pursue the matter further. The Empress Dowager means that the marriage between Zhuozhuo and Prince Chen is a little earlier than that of other princes. The imperial astronomer has set the date, and it will be sent to your mansion in a few days. Time is very tight. The dowry in your mansion should be returned as soon as possible. Zhuozhuo can't go out recently, so embroider more dowry. The Empress Dowager means that it's better for Zhuozhuo to make more dowry for Prince Chen herself. Hearing the mention of the Empress Dowager, Xiao Jing became more respectful. This is what we should do. There are also embroidery maids in our mansion. We can also pick good brocade from outside and let them embroider it. It's okay for Prince Chen to do it herself. That's the best. I also have some things to send over. They will be added to Zhuozhuo's dowry. Great Elder Princess stood up. She had achieved her purpose of coming here today. At this time, she did not want to see old madam's gloomy face. I'll see Great Elder Princess off. Xiao Jing said. Duke Xing, you are too polite. Just let Zhuozhuo see me off. Great Elder Princess took Xiao Wanru's hand and said. Wanru, see your grandma off. Xiao Jing looked at Xiao Wanru kindly and said. Xiao Wanru nodded submissively, bowed to Xiao Jing, and was pulled out by Great Elder Princess. Chapter 824. What does she mean? After Great Elder Princess left, old madam slammed her hand on the table so hard that the teacup on it bounced and almost fell down. Xiao Jing looked around the room and found only Nanny Yu standing behind old madam. He also sat down, picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. Great Elder Princess is threatening us with the Jiang family's affairs. Threatening us? It's none of our business. Even if there was something wrong at that time, it was not our business. Second brother, you are too timid. What are you afraid of? She is just a fallen Great Elder Princess. Can she really make a fuss in the imperial court? Old madam didn't believe it and said angrily. Xiao Jing had been very weak in front of Great Elder Princess just now. She was so angry that she wanted to stand up for Rui and Great Elder Princess. She didn't believe that Rui and Great Elder Princess would really do that. She didn't before, but now she will. Xiao Jing shook his head with a gloomy face. Wanru is going to marry Prince Chen. So what? She is just a... Old madam knew that she had said something wrong and hurriedly stopped talking. Even if she was a patient, she couldn't be casually mentioned by others. Empress Dowager and the Emperor obviously doted on this patient. Yes, no matter how Great Elder Princess made a fuss in the past, it was just a backyard matter and couldn't be taken to the imperial court. Even if Great Elder Princess went to the imperial court to see the Emperor, it was useless. But now it is different. She can say that it is because of Prince Chen. Prince Chen is trusted by the Emperor. If someone is plotting against his marriage, it is indeed a matter of the imperial court, and... Xiao Jing stopped here. And what? Old Madam said anxiously. She came here late, so she didn't know what Great Elder Princess and Xiao Jing had said before. And Great Elder Princess means that she wants to sue me in front of the Emperor for not being strict in managing the family and ask me to divorce my wife. Xiao Jing said with a serious face. He couldn't do either of these things. If he didn't manage his family well, the Imperial Censorate would report to the Imperial Censorate. If he didn't sweep his own house, how could he sweep the world? If he couldn't even manage his own family's affairs well, how could he help the Emperor govern the world? As for divorcing Jiang Shi, he wouldn't agree. This wasn't just about the status of his two children, there were other things. Even if Jiang Shi died, he would not divorce her. What are you afraid of? Does the Emperor care about this kind of thing? Hearing this, Old Madam said angrily. Although she was a little weak, she always felt that she and Great Elder Princess had been evenly matched for so many years. Now Great Elder Princess could not do anything to her, so she did not have to be afraid of her. Mother, I didn't care about it before, but it doesn't mean that I don't care about it now. Now Prince Chen is in it. Xiao Jing was not as simple as Old Madam thought. He shook his head and said with a wry smile. He didn't dare to go up against them. It wasn't worth it for these treasures. But it will all belong to Huan in the future. You have ruined the mansion. How can you explain it to him? Madame Dowager heavily patted the table beside her and said angrily. She had intended to leave everything in this mansion to her eldest grandson. Now that the matter of the dowry had stirred things up, there was so much less left. Let's talk about Huan later. Xiao Jing shook his head. He had to take a step back. After saying that, he asked in confusion, Mother, do you think that Great Elder Princess is different from before because fifth niece said something? Well, I don't think so. She just came back to the mansion and didn't meet Great Elder Princess before. Old Madam said hesitantly. She had suspected it before, but after thinking about it, she felt that it was not the case. It's better not. If fifth niece is really so scheming, it will not be a good thing for the whole Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Jing frowned tightly. Old Madam's face turned pale. She suddenly widened her eyes and said, You don't want to, Mother, don't worry. I won't do that for the time being. Xiao Jing shook his head. That's better. Fifth niece's identity is not ordinary now. You can't act rashly. Old Madam breathed a sigh of relief and reminded him, She is of help to our mansion now. I know. Mother, you go back first and prepare fifth niece's dowry as soon as possible. Great Elder Princess must be satisfied with it, lest she makes other troubles. Xiao Jing said. Since you have made up your mind, let's do it. Old Madam sighed and felt very powerless. She felt that she was really old. Nanny Yu came over and gently knocked on her back a few times. A trace of panic flashed through her slightly lowered eyes, but she still suppressed this panic and tried to look as calm as water. Xiao Jing glanced at Nanny Yu and then turned to Old Madam. He said indifferently, Mother, what about Hua An's marriage? Get it done before fifth niece. How can there be no one in this mansion who is not married? But she, the youngest one, is going to get married. It's really against the rules. Isn't Prince Qin younger than Prince Yu and Prince Shou? Why does he want to get married so early? Old Madam said in confusion and felt more and more annoyed. There was basically nothing else to do in Minister Zhao's mansion. The wedding ceremony would start in these 2 days. Huan was not young and originally wanted to get married early. However, Xiao Wanru got married so early. As the eldest brother, he was in a hurry to get married. It seemed that he was in a hurry to get married. There were not enough embroidery maids in the mansion. There were some for Xiao Huan and some for Xiao Wanru. It seemed that they had to find more embroidery maids from outside, and the embroidery products ordered from outside could not be less. As long as she thought that these troubles would eventually fall on her, Old Madam felt a headache. Third daughter-in-law's health was not good and bad. She was very unreliable. Ask concubine Lu to manage things. I'm old and there are always times when I can't do it. Old Madam said. Concubine Lu was Xiao Jia's biological mother. Okay, mother, I will ask her to help third sister-in-law. Xiao Jing nodded, but his thoughts fell in another direction, and he frowned tightly. Xiao Wanru accompanied Great Elder Princess all the way out. The servant girls and old maids were a few steps behind them, so they couldn't hear their whispers. Grandma, could my mother really be? Xiao Wanru bit her lip and said the doubt in her heart. This idea became stronger. Zhuozhuo, don't worry. I will find out. If your mother really died unjustly, I will definitely not let them go. I will not let anyone in Duke Xing's mansion off. Great Elder Princess gritted her teeth and said. Although she was strong, her eyes were slightly red at this time, but she still held her delicate granddaughter and comforted her. Originally, it was just a reason to force Xiao Jing. Now, like Xiao Wanru, Great Elder Princess also thought it was very possible. Madam of Duke Xing regarded money as her life, and she was so tyrannical that she might really hurt her daughter. When her daughter came back with the posthumous son of heir of Duke Xing, the whole Duke Xing's mansion treated her like a treasure. Even though her daughter was unconscious, she was still tightly protected. Thinking of it now, it was actually normal if she really did something. Great Elder Princess squeezed her granddaughter's cold little hand and said with concern, "You should be careful in the mansion. You can't let anyone see through your mind. Grandmother thinks that your second uncle is not a simple person. I really underestimated him in the past. I thought that he was only accepted by many people because he was amiable." Great Elder Princess squeezed her granddaughter's cold little hand again. She had lost a daughter, so she couldn't lose her only granddaughter. Grandma, don't worry. I will be careful. Xiao Wanru nodded and thought about her second uncle who had secretly observed her just now. She knew that she had aroused his suspicion. Now she was still in Duke Xing's mansion. Although this marriage was good for Duke Xing's mansion, she couldn't guarantee that something else would happen. Now, he couldn't show off his abilities anymore. If you have any problem, you can turn to me. I will find a way for you. Don't do it yourself. Great Elder Princess was still worried and told her again. Xiao Wanru nodded repeatedly and answered one by one with a smile. Seeing her delicate little face full of satisfaction and trust, Great Elder Princess felt sad again. Xiao Wanru walked Great Elder Princess to the door and watched her leave. She took a deep breath and was about to turn around. Suddenly, she saw a figure out of the corner of her eye and stopped immediately. Who is that? Xiao Wanru asked the butler of the outer courtyard who stood in front of her with a smile. She saw a hidden figure diagonally outside. She just passed by him, but because she had seen him this morning, she recognized him at a glance at this time. Fifth Miss, are you talking about Child Yen? The butler's eyes were sharp. Although it was a figure, he recognized him at once and asked with a smile. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. It was indeed Yen Shi in the last life, but she didn't expect to see him in Duke Xing's mansion. Was he really a distant nephew of Madame of Jiang? Xiao Wanru frowned slightly. Is that Child Yen? Is he a relative of our mansion? Xiao Wanru asked calmly. He is not a relative of our mansion. He is the son of Duke's old friend. I heard that he had a good relationship with Duke at that time. This time he came to the capital city for the examination, so he lived in our mansion. The examination will be held in a few days. Child Yen may need something else, so he seldom comes out in the past. The butler of the outer courtyard introduced in a flattering manner. Has he lived here for a period of time? Xiao Wanru asked in surprise. About a month or so. The butler thought for a while and said. Xiao Wanru glanced at the place where Yen Shi disappeared and said casually, this Child Yen looks different from Child Wang in the past. He is a serious student. That's right. Child Yen is completely different from Child Wang. He usually studies very hard. Even when Child Wang invited him to go out to play, he never went out. The butler nodded repeatedly, knowing that Child Wang was Wang Xingxue. Compared with this Child Yan, Wang Xingxue was not even qualified to carry his shoes. The two of them couldn't be compared at all. At first glance, this Child Yan seemed to be promising. He was the top scorer before, and he was sure to pass the examination. Duke had instructed him to serve this Child Yan well. Chapter 825. Is Child Wang very familiar with Child Yan? Xiao Wanru was about to walk into the mansion when she heard the servant's question. In her last life, she didn't know that Wang Xingxue and Yan Shi were very familiar with each other. Not very familiar with each other. Child Wang came to visit Child Yan a few times, but Child Yan only went out with Child Wang once or twice. The butler curled his lips and said. Everyone in Duke Xing's mansion didn't like Child Wang very much, but the masters didn't forbid him from coming, so the servants in the mansion turned a blind eye to it. Did Child Wang also come here today? Xiao Wanru suddenly thought of something and asked. Yes, he came here in the morning, and then went out with Child Yan. He just came back. The butler nodded. Xiao Wanru didn't ask any more questions and asked the butler to go about his business. She walked slowly into the mansion with Yujie. After seeing Xiao Wanru off with a smile, the butler hesitantly looked in the direction where Xiao Wanru went and then looked at the place where Child Yan disappeared. He felt that the fifth miss paid a lot of attention to Child Yan today. After thinking for a while, the butler felt that it was appropriate to report it. The fifth miss had never paid attention to others, and her behavior today was really abnormal. In the next few days, Xiao Wanru was really busy packing up things and sewing clothes for Chu Luqian. The imperial astronomer set the wedding date in 2 months. It was indeed very tight for the royal family to finish the wedding ceremony in only 2 months. However, it was because of Prince Chen, so everyone felt that it was not so surprising. After all, Prince Chen was a well-known invalid. Now that the marriage had been arranged, of course, it had to be carried out as soon as possible. The whole Duke Xing's mansion was in a mess because not only Xiao Wanru's marriage, but also Xiao Hua's marriage. This marriage was set in a month, 1 month earlier than Xiao Wanru's marriage. Xiao Huan was 18 years old. In fact, there were many people who got married at his age, and some of them even had children. He didn't get married so early because he had been studying abroad and was not in Duke Xing's mansion. After returning to Duke Xing's mansion, he devoted himself to taking care of his parents, so he delayed his marriage. Although it had not been officially settled before, many aristocratic families knew that Duke Xing's mansion was going to be engaged to Minister Zhao's mansion. At this time, although it was only a month before the official marriage, everyone felt that it was normal. Maybe the two mansions had prepared everything in advance. After all, the first miss of Minister Zhao's mansion was not young anymore. However, because of Xiao Wanru's marriage, Xiao Huan's marriage was urgent. Concubine Zhao, Xiao Jia's biological mother, was in charge of the business with Third Madam. Third Madam's health was still not good, but Xiao Caihuan's face was much better, but there was still a scar on her face, which had not disappeared for a while. Now she was slowly taking medicine, and no one knew what would happen next. It was said that the imperial physician was not sure now, so he could only take medicine for the time being. In order to order embroidery, Duke Xing's mansion invited a lot of embroidery shops, including Nanny Dong. She entered the Piaoyun courtyard with a few embroidery maids to help Xiao Wanru customize the clothes needed for the wedding. As for the embroidery maids from other places, they were sent to Xiao Huan's new bridal chamber. This time, the new courtyard did not obviously cross the boundary, and even seemed a little remote and inconspicuous. Originally, Madame Dowager wanted to choose one of the manors of the first branch as Xiao Huan's bridal chamber. However, after Great Elder Princess came here once, Madame Dowager calmed down. Because of Great Elder Princess's tough attitude, Madame Dowager did not dare to act rashly. The bridal chamber was temporarily booked. Old Madame had another idea. She wanted to ask Great Elder Princess for Xiao Yuanhao. Old Madame had repeatedly hinted about it in front of Xiao Wanru. However, after Great Elder Princess's visit, old madam didn't mention it again. Xiao Wanru knew that Great Elder Princess was talking about the Zhang's matter again, so she told old madam to give up this idea. If the emperor really reported what had happened to the Zhangs that day, and the emperor was still willing to interfere, it would be easy to find out that it was old madam, and it would be easy to accuse Xiao Jing of not being strict in managing the family. For this reason, old madam did not dare to go too far. She had to give in on Hao Er's matter and promised Great Elder Princess not to let Hao Er return to the mansion for the time being. He would stay in Great Elder Princess's mansion for a period of time and return to Duke Xing's mansion when he grew up. Xiao Wanru quietly embroidered all kinds of things in the room every day. Fortunately, it was not difficult for her. When she was in the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion in her last life, she had nothing else to do except embroidery. She was not a stranger to embroidery, so she could sit quietly. She embroidered in the main room, while Nanny Dong and a group of embroidery maids were in the wing room. Sometimes Xiao Wanru specially called Nanny Dong over. In the eyes of others, they also thought that Xiao Wanru was not very proficient in embroidery, so she specially called Nanny Dong over to have a look. There were so many embroidery maids in the mansion, but no one expected that Nanny Dong was originally Xiao Wanru's maid. Sometimes the embroidery maids brought by Nanny Dong were short of some embroidery thread and materials, so Nanny Dong always went to the sewing room in the mansion to get them. Nanny Dong was a very neat person, so she became familiar with many people in the mansion for a while. It was more convenient for her to inquire about information than Xiao Wanru's maids in the open. Time passed quickly. Xiao Wanru sewed a lot of things here, and Xiao Hua and also had a lot. There was no madam in the second branch, so concubine Zhao took charge of the work, and Xiao Jia went to take care of her from time to time. Without the madam of the Jiang family and Xiao Yanru, Xiao Jia gradually had the feeling that she was the legitimate daughter of the second branch. When talking to others, she could also straighten her back, as if concubine Zhao was about to become the legitimate daughter. When she faced her other sisters, she subconsciously became a little arrogant. Xiao Wanru had been staying in her courtyard now, so she did not have so many feelings. Moreover, from the very beginning, she had known that Xiao Jia was a mean person who became arrogant when she succeeded. She was about to leave Duke Xing's mansion, so Xiao Jia really didn't care about it. Compared with Xiao Yanru, Xiao Jia was much easier to deal with. With Xiao Jia stirring up trouble, it was only good for her. She secretly planted Xiao Jia an unknown factor in Duke Xing's mansion, so that she could intervene in the affairs of Duke Xing's mansion in the future. After all, a married daughter could not be in charge at will. She didn't care about it, but Xiao Caihuan cared about it very much. Recently, Xiao Caihuan came to Xiao Wanru's place from time to help her with some embroidery work and gossip with her. Compared with Xiao Kailing, Xiao Caihuan was much closer to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru didn't know if it was because it was she who stayed in the palace for a period of time instead of Xiao Kailing. Xiao Caihuan's face was injured now, and she was usually unwilling to see others. Although Xiao Wanru was very busy, she basically sat in the room and embroidered, which could be regarded as taking a break from her busy schedule. Xiao Caihuan put down the embroidery in her hand, picked up the teacup beside her, took a sip, and asked softly, "Fifth sister, do you really not want to have a look at Big Brother's courtyard?" Since coming out of the palace, her attitude was a little different from before, and she became closer to Xiao Wanru. She had invited Xiao Wanru to have a look at the courtyard before, but Xiao Wanru had been unwilling. "I don't want to go." Xiao Wanru shook her head and said with a smile, "Grandma is dealing with Big Brother's affairs, and the courtyard is also chosen by Grandma. It must be good. It's really good, so you should also go and have a look. Let's go together." "I haven't been there either. I just heard it from others," Xiao Caihuan said softly. She was wearing a veil, even in the room, leaving only a pair of eyes in front of her. At this moment, she looked a little tempted. They were all young girls, and in fact, they all liked to join in the fun. "I'd better not." Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment, but still shook her head and said, "I'll go there now." If I see Big Brother, I'll be very embarrassed. What's there to be embarrassed about? We're just going to have a look at Big Brother's courtyard. He should be embarrassed to see us. Xiao Caihuan said, and then her smile turned cold. Just don't meet second sister. Second sister really thinks of herself as second uncle's daughter. Xiao Caihuan had also mentioned this before. Xiao Wanru had taken an indifferent attitude towards this matter. You don't have to care about second sister's temperament. Xiao Wanru said lightly. I didn't intend to care about it, but she still talked nonsense in front of my mother. Xiao Caihuan said angrily. What did she talk about in front of third aunt? About Big Brother's courtyard? Xiao Wanru asked in surprise. The needle in her hand fell steadily and was not affected at all. It'd be great if it's about my eldest brother. When did she become so concerned about others? She said it as if. I envy her. It's just a marriage that no one wants. Xiao Caihuan blushed when she said this, twisting the handkerchief and stirring it angrily. She really didn't like Xiao Jia, or so-called good marriage. The concubine of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. She was not as good as the legal wife of an ordinary family. What was there to be proud of? However, Xiao Jia said that if she wanted to marry Xiao Jia, she would let her marry Xiao Jia for her poor sake. Every time she thought of this, Xiao Caihuan was so angry that she wanted to push Xiao Jia's hateful face away. How could Xiao Jia say such things in front of her mother? Third aunt, what did she say? Xiao Wanru tilted her head, glanced at her, and asked softly with a trace of sadness in her eyes. I don't know what's going on with mother. She is so calm to her. She should have been kicked out long ago because she doesn't know the rules. Xiao Caihuan became more and more angry. She didn't understand why her mother could tolerate Xiao Jia's words. Shouldn't she have kicked Xiao Jia out directly? Why did her mother let Xiao Jia talk there with a smile on her face and was very polite to concubine Zhao? The more Xiao Caihuan thought about it, the angrier she became. She always felt that her mother was too lenient to Xiao Jia. Chapter 826. Even if second aunt was not here now, it was not Xiao Jia's turn to criticize the second branch. Big Brother was going to get married soon, and first aunt would support the second branch. Xiao Jia, a daughter of a concubine, was nothing. Except for Xiao Jia, all the others in Duke Xing's mansion were daughters of lineal descent, so how could they like Xiao Jia? Second uncle has no other daughters now. Now big sister is not here. For second uncle's sake, second sister also has more dignity. Even grandma treats second sister better, let alone us. Xiao Wanru answered very calmly and didn't care much about Xiao Jia's affairs. That's true, but she is really. Xiao Caihuan was a little angry. She took a deep breath and suppressed it. She shook her head and said, forget it. Let's not talk about her. I get angry when I talk about her. I don't know what's wrong with her. She's talking nonsense. Xiao Wanru looked sideways at Xiao Caihuan's face and smiled slightly. Did this mean that she didn't know the specific details of the marriage that Xiao Jia mentioned, or that she was dissatisfied with this marriage? In Xiao Jia's eyes, Commandery Prince Qing's concubine was a good match, but in Xiao Caihuan's eyes, it was not necessarily so. Although Xiao Caihuan's face was injured now, she didn't know what would happen in the future, and she was old. But if there were other possibilities, she would definitely not choose Chu Qing. But why did she tell her about this? Xiao Wanru blinked her watery eyes twice to hide the doubt in them. When she looked up again, there was only a faint smile left, a little cold and distant. She had no friendship with Xiao Caihuan. In the imperial palace, Xiao Caihuan also helped Xiao Yanru plot against her, but in the end, she suffered from her own actions. Now she was also looking at her and didn't know the truth, so she behaved so intimately to her. Xiao Wanru had always been very wary of those who had framed her. She didn't think that the two of them could talk about such private things intimately now. Fifth sister, let's go and have a look at Big Brother's courtyard. Although it is newly renovated, it is still very good and not worse than other courtyards in our mansion. First sister-in-law will be satisfied with it when she marries in the future. Xiao Caihuan said again and reached out to pull Xiao Wanru's embroidery shed, which made the thread in Xiao Wanru's hand loose. Fifth sister, I'm sorry. I'll help you redo it later. Seeing that she had messed up, Xiao Caihuan said humbly and put down her hand. Xiao Wanru shook her head, put down the embroidery shed that she had just picked up and said, Third sister, you are too polite. It doesn't matter. Xiao Caihuan had helped her a lot in the past 2 days. How could she let her help her again because of this small matter? Fifth sister, are we really not going to take a look? Just take a look. In the future, when you marry into Prince Chen's mansion, it will be inconvenient for you to come back and take a look. Xiao Caihuan sighed. Thinking of Prince Chen she had seen before, she felt a little strange in her heart. A few days ago, Chu Luchen sent the betrothal gifts in person. Originally, Chu Luchen didn't need to send them in person, and the Ministry of Rites would send someone to send them. However, that day, Chu Luchen happened to be free, so he went to Duke Xing's mansion with the officials of the Ministry of Rites. Although it was just a formality, the whole Duke Xing's mansion changed immediately. Although some people envied Xiao Wanru for marrying into the royal family, they said that she was a patient who didn't know how long she would live. There were many people talking about it in private. However, after seeing Chu Luchen, everyone only envied him. He was as handsome as a child coming out of a painting. Many people felt that it was not a loss to marry such a person, even if they didn't have a royal identity. Moreover, as far as they could see, although Prince Chen looked a little weak, he was not so sick that he would die. No matter how they looked at him, he was fine and it was not a big deal. Therefore, Xiao Wanru had indeed climbed up a high branch. Let's go. Xiao Wanru said helplessly. If she continued to talk like this, she would not be able to do anything and would be annoyed. She never knew that Xiao Caihuan could be so annoying. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, Xiao Caihuan immediately became happy. They cleaned up a little and walked to Xiao Hua's bridal chamber together. Along the way, there were many servant girls and old maids who went in that direction. They were in a hurry and were busy decorating Xiao Hua's bridal chamber. Xiao Wanru didn't know the specific courtyard where the bridal chamber was located, but Xiao Caihuan knew it. They came all the way. When they saw the courtyard, Xiao Wanru frowned slightly. This courtyard was a little different from what she had imagined. She had thought that although it was not as good as her Piaoyun courtyard, it should at least be better than other courtyards. However, the courtyard she saw now was very ordinary, which was really surprising. In the courtyard of Duke Xing's mansion, the Piaoyun courtyard became Xiao Wanru's courtyard because of the special situation. It was the best courtyard in the whole mansion. As for the other courtyards where old Madame lived and the courtyards where Madame Jiang lived, they were also excellent. The courtyard in front of them was even smaller than Madame Jiang's courtyard, and its geographical location was very ordinary. Why, is it like this? Xiao Caihuan also looked surprised. She had been here before, but had long forgotten the specific appearance of the courtyard. At this time, when she saw it, she couldn't help but mutter to herself. Then she turned to an old maid on the side and asked her servant girl to call her over to ask. Is this the bridal chamber that the first young master wants to decorate? Xiao Caihuan asked. After seeing the two misses, the old maid nodded with a smile and said, This is the first young master's bridal chamber. It is still being decorated, and second miss is helping to arrange it inside. Is there no other empty courtyards in the mansion? Xiao Caihuan asked the question in her heart. Such a courtyard was really not worthy of Xiao Hua's identity as the eldest legitimate son. It was too ordinary and looked similar to Xiao Caihuan's courtyard. The third branch was much weaker than the second branch in Duke Xing's mansion, so they certainly didn't choose a good courtyard. I don't know. Third miss, if you want to know, you can ask second Mississippi. She is in charge of this matter, and I heard that it was second miss who helped to choose it. The old maid stammered. As a servant, she really didn't know this kind of thing. Although she, as a servant, also felt that this courtyard was a little small and undignified, she just did what the masters in the mansion had decided. Come on, let's go in and have a look. Seeing that she couldn't ask anything, Xiao Caihuan let the old maid go and said to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru nodded and followed Xiao Caihuan into the courtyard. The courtyard was even more lively. A large group of servant girls and old maids were moving a large wardrobe and carefully moving it inside. In the corridor, Xiao Jia loudly instructed them to move in the direction of the wardrobe. It seemed that they were in full swing. Seeing them come in, the idle servant girls and old maids hurriedly bowed to them, but Xiao Jia didn't seem to see them. She didn't even glance at them and continued to instruct the servant girls and old maids to move the wardrobe together. Second sister, I heard that you helped to choose Big Brother's courtyard. Aren't you afraid of Big Brother's anger by choosing such a courtyard? Xiao Caihuan came over and said slowly in an unkind tone. Xiao Wanru followed her, glanced at the group of old maids and servant girls who were moving things, and said nothing. It turns out that third sister and fifth sister are here. I'm so busy that I really didn't notice you two coming. Xiao Jia said, if you are not busy, help me think of a way to move this wardrobe in a more convenient way and less likely to bump into it. It seemed that she was asking for advice from them, but in fact, she completely ignored Xiao Caihuan's words, which made Xiao Caihuan so angry that her face changed. As the lineal daughter of the third branch, she had always looked down on Xiao Jia, who had always been by Xiao Yanru's side. Now she was directly ignored by Xiao Jia, so how could she not be angry? Second sister, don't be in a hurry to move things. Does Big Brother know that you chose this courtyard? Do Grandma and second uncle know that? Why not? Of course, Big Brother, second uncle and Grandma all know and are satisfied with it, but third sister seems to be dissatisfied with it. Xiao Jia glanced at Xiao Caihuan with a bit of sarcasm in her eyes, completely looking down on Xiao Caihuan. Satisfied with it? Second sister, you won't forget that Big Brother is the lineal eldest son of the mansion, will you? Xiao Caihuan snorted coldly and her face darkened. So what? Xiao Jia didn't seem to understand the meaning of Xiao Caihuan's words. Xiao Wanru sat down in the corridor on one side and calmly watched the two sisters quarreling with each other. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth. It seemed that it was not a simple matter. Even if Xiao Jia had 100 guts, she would not dare to deliberately humiliate Xiao Hua and. So they were really satisfied with it? Of course, this was impossible. She would like to see what they were up to. Second sister, your words are so frivolous. Big Brother is not only the lineal eldest son, but also the lineal eldest son. The lineal eldest son has always been the most noble. When you say this, have you thought about your identity? Xiao Caihuan said coldly, implying that Xiao Jia was a daughter of a concubine. She was neither the lineal eldest son nor the lineal eldest son. Xiao Jia was angry and her face turned livid. She put down the round fan in her hand and said coldly, what do you mean, third sister? Do you think I didn't choose well? Second sister, there are many courtyards in our mansion that are better than this one, right? Isn't there a more suitable one in those empty courtyards? Did you choose such a courtyard to humiliate Big Brother? Xiao Caihuan was also angry. She couldn't bear being criticized by a daughter of a concubine whom she looked down upon. In particular, she remembered what Xiao Jia had said arrogantly in front of her mother before, which made her feel that she was inferior to Xiao Jia. What nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Jia frowned indifferently and muttered, there is no more suitable courtyard in this mansion. It's good enough to choose such a courtyard. I'm talking nonsense. Aren't there a few good courtyards over there? What's going on? Are you going to keep it for your own use? Come on, let's go to find Grandma. We must make it clear. Why did you choose such a small and narrow courtyard for Big Brother? Xiao Caihuan was so angry that she came over and wanted to pull Xiao Jia away. Chapter 827. Xiao Jia dodged her hand and was also anxious. She stamped her feet hard and said, it has nothing to do with you. It's our second branch's business. Why are you making a scene here? Xiao Caihuan was also annoyed by her words. She said loudly, I'm also a member of Duke Xing's mansion. Why does it have nothing to do with me? Miss Xiao is about to get married. At that time, she will be the eldest sister-in-law of the second branch. I'll see how you explain it to Miss Xiao then. Other courtyards are not suitable. Xiao Jia said loudly. Other courtyards are more suitable than this one. They are large, suitable, and in a good location. Are you not satisfied with Miss Xiao? Xiao Caihuan also rebuked her loudly. The two of them quarreled fiercely. Suddenly, an angry voice came from the gate of the courtyard. Since you don't like our miss, why do you want to marry her? Xiao Wanru looked back and saw several old maids standing at the door. At first glance, she knew that they were not from Duke Xing's mansion. The style of their clothes was completely different from that of Duke Xing's mansion. The first old maid, who was dressed differently and had an extraordinary bearing, was the one who had just spoken. Seeing that several misses inside looked back at her, she did not panic and said angrily, let's go and meet the old madam of your mansion. Your old madam and our old madam agreed that they would treat our first miss well. If this is what they are now, we don't need to marry them. As the old maid said, she angrily walked out with several people following her and left some furniture and accessories that had just been carried here. These were the furniture that Shangshu Zhao's mansion had specially sent here for the newlyweds' room. It's the servants of old madam of the minister's mansion. Xiao Jia's face changed and she panicked. Let's go and have a look. Xiao Caihuan was also nervous. This kind of quarrel between sisters was not a big deal as long as it was not spread outside. But now it was heard by the people of Minister Zhao's mansion, and they even wanted to break off the engagement in front of old madam. It was a big deal. Now they could only go to old madam's place. Xiao Wanru didn't want to go with them. She had nothing to do with the quarrel just now, so she didn't have to go with them. However, Xiao Caihuan pulled her with a pale face, as if she would faint if Xiao Wanru didn't go with them, so she had to go with them. A group of people went to the Chuntang courtyard of Madame Dowager. Although they left late, they walked fast. Soon, they caught up with the people of Minister Zhao's mansion and entered the Chuntang courtyard together. Old madam had already received the news and was waiting for them in the main room. As soon as they entered the main room, the nanny in charge of Minister Zhao's mansion stepped forward and bowed to Madame Dowager. Then she said angrily, Madame Dowager, please uphold justice for our first miss. What is it? Old madam frowned. Xiao Wanru and her two sisters also stepped forward. After bowing to old madam, they retreated to a chair on the side and sat down. After sitting down, Xiao Wanru lowered her head and looked down. She just wanted to be a quiet spectator. This matter had nothing to do with her, but she inexplicably felt that it would not be so simple. Everything was too coincidental. She, who was unwilling to go out, was persuaded by Xiao Caihuan to go to see the new house. It happened that Xiao Jia was making gestures there. The two of them quarreled. Because the courtyard was inconspicuous, their words became more and more unpleasant, and it even involved Minister Zhao's mansion. What was more coincidental was that Minister Zhao's mansion sent some furniture to decorate the new house. Hearing the two sisters quarreling, Xiao Wanru came to complain to old madam. It was really a coincidence that so many coincidences happened together. Xiao Wanru naturally didn't believe it. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth and smiled silently. The development of this matter was really strange. She only had a purpose, but why did this thing happen in front of her again? Old madam, our first miss is going to marry the first young master of your mansion. The first young master is the eldest lineal descendant, isn't he? The old maid of Minister Zhao's mansion said with a little anger. Old madam nodded and did not say anything, motioning for her to continue. This was an indisputable fact, and there was no need to doubt anything. Since he is the eldest lineal descendant, why did he choose such a small courtyard? I have seen a lot of courtyards along the way, but none of them is as inconspicuous as this one. I originally felt strange and didn't understand if there was any mystery in it. After hearing the two misses quarrel, I found that there was no mystery at all. It was just that they didn't care about it, so they chose the most ordinary courtyard. If old madam is really dissatisfied with our first miss, this marriage is not necessary. The old maid in charge was very angry. As the personal old maid of Minister Zhao's mother, she naturally had the bearing to say such words. Also because she was the nanny in charge of old madam of Minister Zhao's mansion, her words were more convincing. Looking at her angry look, everyone knew that this matter could not be easily forgiven. Old madam coughed in a low voice and comforted her, saying, "Wait a minute. After I figure out this matter, I will definitely give your mansion an explanation." After that, she turned to Xiao Jia, and said with her face darkening, I asked you to help your elder brother. What did you do?" Xiao Jia immediately cried out in grievance. She stood up and wiped her eyes, saying, "Grandma, this really has nothing to do with me. It was third sister and fifth sister who came and quarreled with me. In fact, I don't know anything." Her words were very vague. It sounded as if Xiao Wanru and Xiao Caihuan were quarreling with her. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart, but her eyes still fell on the ground in front of her. She was very steady, as if she had not been involved in what she said. After glancing at her, old madam's eyes fell on Xiao Caihuan. "Third girl, tell me what happened. Weren't you embroidering with fifth girl? Why didn't you stay with fifth girl? Why did you go to second girl's place with fifth girl to make trouble?" "All right." She also mentioned Xiao Wanru in her words. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. Now she was 90% sure that this matter was going to involve her. Xiao Caihuan could not be trusted. If it were not for Xiao Caihuan, she would not have appeared in this trap today. She continued to sit there, as if she did not hear old madam's rebuke of her and Xiao Caihuan. Xiao Caihuan looked at Xiao Wanru, who was sitting there motionless with her head down. Seeing that Xiao Wanru still had no reaction, and then looked at the angry old madam, she had to answer. "Grandma, I was embroidering with fifth sister. I happened to be tired, so I came out for a walk with fifth sister. I didn't expect to see such a courtyard." Xiao Caihuan paused and glanced at the supervisor nanny of Shangshu Zhao's mansion. After hesitating for a while, she said, "Second sister was in that courtyard, and then second sister quarreled with me." There were some words that couldn't be said in front of the supervisor nanny of Shangshu Zhao's mansion, so Xiao Caihuan's words were extremely vague. "Third sister, what are you talking about? Did I come to quarrel with you? I was helping eldest brother to decorate the new house, and fifth sister and I came over and blamed me without saying a word. Why did it become my fault now?" "Grandma, it was obviously third sister and fifth sister who started it." Xiao Jia felt aggrieved and defended herself. "It was another, fifth sister. In fact, fifth sister just sat there and watched them quarrel for a while without doing anything." Xiao Wanru turned her eyes and became quiet, but she still lowered her head, looking very obedient. Compared with her two sisters who were at loggerheads, she was much better. "Did we pick it? It's obviously you. You picked such an inconspicuous new house for eldest brother. There are so many good courtyards, but you picked such a one." Xiao Caihuan couldn't stand Xiao Jia's accusation anymore, so she glared at Xiao Jia and retorted. "Old madam, I'll ask for your opinion on behalf of old madam. Why did you pick such a poor courtyard for our first Mrs. New house? Our mansion promised to pick the best one before. What's going on now? Are you not satisfied with our first miss?" As soon as Xiao Caihuan said this, the nanny in charge of Minister Zhao's mansion immediately followed up and criticized angrily. The previous courtyard. Old madam frowned and couldn't continue for a while. She looked up at Xiao Wanru. Everyone in the mansion knew that the Piaoyun courtyard where Xiao Wanru lived now was the original new house, but now it had been occupied by Xiao Wanru, so they couldn't ask Xiao Wanru to give it up again. "Our mansion promised that they would leave the best courtyard for our first Mississippi. The two families have been talking about marriage for a period of time. Our old madam thought that since your mansion is so sincere, this marriage will be officially settled. But we didn't expect that your mansion would cheat us into marrying. Seeing that old madam didn't make it clear, the nanny in charge of Minister Zhao's mansion became more and more angry and even said the word, cheat us into marrying. The so-called, cheat us into marrying, would be punished by criminal law, and it would make the whole Duke Xing's mansion lose face. What do you mean by cheat us into marrying? It's a good marriage. How can you say that it's cheating us into marrying? Old madam snorted coldly and said unhappily. How could it be a cheat us into marrying? Our mansion has been trying our best to prepare for eldest brother's marriage. Xiao Caihuan answered angrily. If Xiao Huan's marriage failed, Xiao Caihuan would feel guilty. At this time, of course, she tried her best to agree with old madam's words. Xiao Jia also said anxiously, our mansion didn't cheat us into marrying. It's just that the previous courtyard has been given to fifth sister. How can we ask fifth sister to give it up again now? We have to wait until fifth sister gets married before moving again. Now we just need to make Miss Xiao suffer a little. It's just that it will only take 1 month, not too long. Xiao Jia mentioned Xiao Wanru again, and it was the kind of unavoidable. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart, and then slowly raised her head with an elegant and cold smile. Are you here to fight over who the courtyard I live in now belongs to in the future? Chapter 828. According to the rules in the capital city, the courtyard of a married daughter could be vacated or given to other masters in the mansion. If it was given to other masters to live in, it was basically because there were many masters that the courtyard would be divided. Otherwise, it would always be kept. However, even if it was given to other masters to live in, it would have to wait for half a year. She had never seen such an anxious way of waiting to occupy the Piaoying courtyard. She did not intend to give up Xiao Wanru's courtyard. After Xiao Yuanhao returned to the mansion, she would come to visit from time to time and support Xiao Yuanhao. Even if she didn't live in it herself, she could ask her grandma to live in it occasionally and visit Hao. Like great elder princess, she was worried about Xiao Yuanhao. There were not many masters in Duke Xing's mansion, so there was no need to occupy her courtyard at all. However, she did not expect that they had already planned to occupy her courtyard. No matter whose idea it was, she did not intend to give it up. Moreover, she could see that they had an ulterior motive. Fifth sister, why do you? Xiao Caihuan panicked. She looked at Xiao Wanru and then at old madam, feeling flustered. She did not want to offend Xiao Wanru at all. If it were not for old madam's order, she would not want to get Xiao Wanru involved in this matter anyway. She had thought that this matter was not a big deal. Since Xiao Wanru was married, it was okay for her courtyard to be empty. It was okay for her elder brother to live in it. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanru was so tough. For a moment, she did not know how to prove her innocence. Fifth sister, this is after you get married. Are you going to live in your parents' house after you get married? Xiao Jia did not have so many scruples. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, she said with a straight face and a little annoyed. She stood by old madam's side and spoke for her wholeheartedly. Xiao Wanru looked at old madam sitting in the upper seat. Seeing that old madam just had a cold face and did not say a word, she knew that old madam meant the same. She suddenly smiled, stood up and bowed sideways to old madam. Grandma, I have something to do and have to go back. I can't accompany you. Fifth sister, are you going to agree or not? Just tell me. Xiao Wanru was about to leave, but Xiao Jia was anxious. She stood up, stopped in front of Xiao Wanru and asked, as if Xiao Wanru would not let her go if she did not give an answer now. Xiao Wanru was so angry that she almost laughed. She was forced to agree. As an unmarried miss from an aristocratic family, how could she have the nerve to discuss this kind of thing? As a miss from an aristocratic family who was shy about her marriage, of course, she would say whatever she wanted at this time. What's more, there was an outsider from Minister Zhao's mansion here. What Xiao Wanru needed to do now was to agree. Second sister, you shouldn't discuss this with me. You should talk to grandmother. Xiao Wanru's eyes turned cold and fell on Xiao Jia, but her voice was very gentle. However, the strong gap between them made Xiao Jia involuntarily take a step back. She always felt that Xiao Wanru's eyes seemed to be able to penetrate her, which made her feel inexplicably guilty. She stole a glance at old madam above and saw that she still didn't say a word. She knew that old madam was not satisfied with her words. Today, she was going to force Xiao Wanru to agree. How could she let Xiao Wanru get married so easily? So what if I tell grandmother? Grandmother will definitely ask fifth sister whether she is reluctant to leave the Piaoyun courtyard. Xiao Jia continued, fifth sister has been living in the Piaoyun courtyard since she came to our mansion. It's reasonable for her to be reluctant to leave it. But we can't let first Miss Xiao live in such an ordinary courtyard, can we? Originally, I wanted to live in an ordinary courtyard first and move to the Piaoyun courtyard after fifth sister gets married. Since fifth sister is reluctant to leave it. Xiao Jia coughed in a low voice and was ready to go straight to the point. Okay, I'll give up the Piaoyun courtyard. Xiao Wanru suddenly interrupted her and replied coldly, if big brother needs it, I can give it up now. After Xiao Wanru agreed, she turned around and bowed respectfully to old madam, who was a little stunned, and said politely, grandmother, I'll go back first. Third sister insisted that I come here to see the new house and join in the fun. In fact, there are a lot of unfinished work, so I won't talk to grandmother now. Grandmother, you can decide how to deal with the Piaoyun courtyard. I'll go first. After saying that, she turned around and left with Yujie without waiting for old madam to say anything. Xiao Jia still wanted to say something, but Yujie took a step forward, pulled her sleeve, and directly pulled her aside. Xiao Jia originally wanted to make a fuss, but she couldn't find a reason at the moment. Xiao Wanru had already agreed. What else did she want? Seeing that Xiao Wanru had already walked to the door, Xiao Jia began to sweat on her forehead. Their goal was not Xiao Wanru's Piaoyun courtyard. Although that courtyard was good, there was no need to quarrel with Xiao Wanru like this. Old madam wanted another courtyard, but she didn't even have a chance to mention it. Her heavy punch not only fell on cotton, but also on other cotton. She felt so aggrieved that she wanted to vomit blood. Fifth sister. Xiao Jia was unwilling to let such a good opportunity slip away in vain, and she didn't have a chance to mention what old madam had said before. Thinking of old madam's punishment after this, Xiao Jia shouted behind Xiao Wanru. When she was about to say what she was going to say, she saw Xiao Wanru stop and couldn't help but pause. Xiao Wanru turned her head to look at Xiao Jia, slightly raised the corners of her mouth, and said with a sweet smile, second sister, big sister said that she missed you very much when she was in the imperial palace. Someone even asked about your health and asked if you hurt yourself when you fell into the water in the imperial palace. After saying this, Xiao Jia, who had been full of heat, immediately became cold and chilling. It was Xiao Yenru who fell into the water in the imperial palace, but in fact, it was not her. It was just that she and Xiao Yenru switched the beam with the pillar. This meant that Xiao Wanru not only knew it, but also got the evidence. Who was the so-called someone else? At that time, there were also two princes. If it were in the past, Xiao Jia would not be so afraid. With her big sister around, even if the two princes knew it, they would not say anything. But now the situation was different. Even her big sister had fallen into such a situation, so how could she take care of her? Xiao Jia opened her mouth, but found that she couldn't say a word at all. She could only watch Xiao Wanru leave. After Xiao Wanru left, the whole main room was gloomy and uncomfortable, as if there was something heavily suppressing everyone's heart. Peeping at old madam of Duke Xing's mansion, the supervisor nanny of Minister Zhao's mansion took the opportunity to leave, but still said very impolitely, old madam, such a thing happened in your mansion. Please tell our old madam how to solve it. I will go back and report it to our old madam first. Old madam waved her hand, and Nanny Yu took the initiative to send her out and followed her with a group of servants. In the room, only Xiao Jia and Xiao Caihuan were left standing in front of old madam. After everyone left, old madam glanced at Xiao Jia, and Xiao Caihuan coldly, and her face turned blue with anger. How could she not be angry? She was about to bring up the matter, but Xiao Wanru asked Xiao Wanru to leave at the last moment without mentioning it. She couldn't mention it herself and could only let Xiao Jia mention it. However, Xiao Jia was so useless that Xiao Wanru was so scared that she didn't even mention it, which made her plan go in vain. Grandma, I. Xiao Jia couldn't resist old madam's gaze. She knelt down with a plop and burst into tears in panic. She was really afraid. Xiao Jia had always been afraid of old madam, Madam of Duke Xing, and Madam Jiang. After being called over by old madam that day, she also wholeheartedly wanted to show off in front of old madam. She had thought that it was not a big deal and just mentioned it. After that, old madam would be in charge of the matter. As long as she mentioned it, she would complete the task old madam had ordered. Unexpectedly, she didn't mention the name, Chu Huan Courtyard, to Xiao Wanru just now. That was old madam's real purpose. The courtyard where the heir of Duke Xing lived in the last life was also the courtyard where the heir of Duke Xing's mansion lived for generations. The reason why he didn't live in Duke Xing's mansion now was that he had directly inherited the title without being the heir of Duke Xing. Living in the Chu Huan courtyard was almost equivalent to admitting the status of the heir of Duke Xing, and it was Xiao Wanru's consent. In the future, even if Rui and Great Elder Princess said something, Duke Xing's mansion could use this reason to stop her. This was also the reason why Xiao Jia suddenly changed her mind when she said that she wanted Xiao Wanru to give up the Piaoyun courtyard. Xiao Wanru refused to give up the Piaoyun courtyard, so she had to agree to give up the Chu Huan courtyard. The Chu Huan courtyard had been empty for so long. It was almost an empty courtyard. Xiao Wanru had refused before, so it was almost impossible for her to refuse it now. As long as Xiao Wanru agreed, old madam would ask someone to work overnight and put all the things prepared for Xiao Hua and in the Chu Huan courtyard. It would be too late for Rui and Great Elder Princess to say anything when she learned about it. She would do it quickly. As long as Xiao Wanru agreed, it would be a success. If anything happened in the future, she could blame it on Xiao Wanru. At that time, others would only think that Xiao Wanru was selfish. She wanted to keep her Piaoyun courtyard and offered to give up the former heir of Duke Xing's Chu Huan courtyard. The Piaoyun courtyard was not the ultimate goal, but the Chu Huan courtyard. But now Xiao Jia didn't even mention it. How could old madam not be angry? She glared at Xiao Jia fiercely, which made the sweat on Xiao Jia's forehead ooze out involuntarily. She kowtowed to old madam twice heavily and cried while stammering, "Grandma, I'm going to talk to fifth sister about it now and ask her to give up the Chu Huan courtyard to my brother." Her words made old madam so angry that she wanted to pick up the teacup on the table and smash it on Xiao Jia. Xiao Jia was indeed a daughter of a concubine. She couldn't even see the situation clearly. Did she think it was useful to talk about it at this time? You, go and copy the women's precepts. Old madam gritted her teeth and said with hatred. Yes, Grandma, I'll go and copy it right away. Xiao Jia felt as if she had been pardoned. She stood up, wiped her tears, and was about to run away. But she was stopped by old madam. Go to your brother's bridal chamber and copy it. Don't sleep tonight. Chapter 829. At this time, as long as old madam didn't punish her, Xiao Jia was willing to do anything. After leaving with sweat all over her head, she stood at the gate of the courtyard, angry and annoyed. Why had she been frightened by Xiao Wanru just now? She couldn't even say a word. "Miss," the servant girl said timidly. "Let's go." Xiao Jia gritted her teeth and turned to leave. After she finished copying the women's precepts that old madam had ordered, she would go to Xiao Wanru to talk about it. She didn't believe that there would be no chance to talk about it. Not only would she talk about it, but she would also talk about it when there were many people, forcing Xiao Wanru to agree, so that she could please old madam. Thinking of old madam's promise, Xiao Jia was very tempted. This was her chance, and she would not give up. In the main room, Xiao Caihuan stood with her head lowered. She was also very flustered and confused. There were some things she knew and some things she didn't know. She had also guessed that the only thing she had done before was to take Xiao Wanru there. In this regard, she could be considered to have accomplished it. Unlike Xiao Jia, she didn't want to get involved in this kind of thing at all. But because it was not difficult, she didn't care and agreed. At this time, she regretted it very much. If she had known that this matter would become like this, she would never have gotten involved. In fact, this matter had nothing to do with her. Anyway, whether the first branch or the second branch was the heir of the duke, it had nothing to do with the third branch. But it was her father's order, so she felt that it was not difficult, so she agreed. Grandma. Seeing old madam's gloomy face, Xiao Caihuan called her. You can leave now. Old madam said coldly. Xiao Caihuan wanted to say something, but after looking at old madam's face, she didn't say anything more. She didn't want to get involved in this matter. Since her grandma didn't ask her to do anything, it was the best. Xiao Caihuan came out of the main room with her servant girl. After standing in the yard and thinking for a while, she went out of the yard and went straight to Xiao Wanru's Piaoying courtyard. She had to explain to Xiao Wanru that she really didn't know it would become like this. When she arrived at the Piaoying courtyard, she stepped into the courtyard and saw Nanny Yu coming over with a smile. She bowed to her and said, "Third miss. Has fifth sister come back?" Xiao Caihuan said anxiously. She was really anxious, for fear that something would happen at this time and she would be blamed again. Our young mistress has returned. Nanny Yu answered with a smile. That's good. Xiao Caihuan breathed a sigh of relief and was about to leave. I'll go and see fifth sister. Third miss, please wait a minute. Nanny Yu stepped back and blocked Xiao Caihuan's way. Xiao Caihuan stood still, looked at Nanny Yu in confusion, and asked, "Is there anything else?" Not really, but our young mistress was very tired when she came back just now. She has already laid down to rest for a while. Third young mistress, please come back later. Nanny Yu smiled and refused. Xiao Caihuan looked up at the sky. The lunch break had passed, and Xiao Wanru basically didn't rest. But she actually took a break today. It was very fake. But even if she knew it was fake, Xiao Caihuan couldn't force her way in. She could only smile and say, "Since fifth sister is resting, I'll come to see her later and explain to her." After saying that, she turned around helplessly. She really didn't want to offend Xiao Wanru at all, so she specially came to Xiao Wanru to reconcile and explain. "See you, third miss." Nanny Yu said with an excellent attitude with a smile. She looked at Xiao Caihuan's back, bowed, and then watched her leave. After seeing her go out of the courtyard and disappear at the intersection ahead, Nanny Yu turned around and returned to the main room. In the main room, Xiao Wanru sat under the window and looked out of the window with deep eyes. She clearly saw the scene when Xiao Caihuan came over just now. The gauze curtain fell, and the people inside could see outside, but the people outside could not see inside clearly. "Miss, third miss has gone back," Yu Jie said. Xiao Wanru nodded, picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip, and then slowly put it down. She leaned back in the chair, and her eyes became colder and colder. At that moment, she did want to refuse bluntly, but inexplicably, she suddenly thought of another thing. She immediately agreed and then left decisively, not even giving Xiao Jia a chance to speak. It had been a long time since the previous thing happened. For such a long time, she didn't see anyone take action. She was negligent. She thought that they didn't have the idea of Chu Huan courtyard anymore. She didn't expect that they would mention it at this critical time. She almost fell into their trap. These people were really unscrupulous. "Miss, what should we do now?" Yu Jie, who had been with Xiao Wanru just now, also sensed the atmosphere that was on the verge of breaking out. At this time, she couldn't help looking at Xiao Wanru's beautiful and cold side face and asked. Xiao Wanru picked up the teacup and took another sip. After putting down the teacup, she looked at the light smoke curling up from the teacup and said slowly, "Go and ask Ching-er to come here." Now, the only one who could secretly spread the news was Ching-er. "I'll go and ask Ching-er to come here right away," Yu Jie said, turned around and happened to meet Nanny Yu. She nodded at Nanny Yu silently and winked at the main room, indicating that Miss was angry. Nanny Yu nodded with a smile to show that she got it. The two of them passed each other. Nanny Yu lifted the curtain and came in. Seeing Xiao Wanru sitting in front of the window, she knew that Xiao Wanru must have seen the scene just now. "Miss, the third miss has gone back, but she will come again later," Nanny Yu reported. "If she comes again, tell her that I haven't woken up yet and go back to sleep." Xiao Wanru suddenly smiled with the corners of her lips raised. Her smile was no longer clear and even a little cold. Nanny Yu hesitated for a moment, but still said, "Miss, if the third miss keeps coming in the future, shall we always say this?" Xiao Caihuan looked like the kind of person who would not give up. She would definitely come again and would not give up until she saw her master. "Nanny Yu, why do you think the third sister came?" Xiao Wanru suddenly asked lazily. Recently, Xiao Caihuan had been too enthusiastic to her and had a good relationship with her. Judging from what had happened in the palace, it was impossible for Xiao Caihuan to have such a good relationship with her. What had happened in the palace would eventually affect Xiao Caihuan. She, who should have been in trouble, was not in trouble. Even if Xiao Caihuan did not have real evidence, she would definitely suspect her, instead of acting as if she was on good terms with her at the moment. Just like what had happened today, Xiao Caihuan should also know something, but she should only know a little, so she was anxious to explain it to her. Although she was the daughter of the eldest branch, Xiao Caihuan was not inferior. She was the daughter of the third branch, and now the person in charge of the mansion was the third madam. Xiao Caihuan did not need to be humble in front of her at all. No. Not only was she humble, but she was also very gentle, which was a feeling that Xiao Caihuan had never given Xiao Wanru in the past. "I'm not sure." Nanny Yu shook her head. She really couldn't guess why the third miss and her master got along so well. Before they entered the palace, the relationship between the third young mistress and her young mistress was quite good, but not to this extent. During this period of time, Nanny Yu also noticed that the third young mistress gave priority to her young mistress. As long as her young mistress said it, the third young mistress would definitely agree. Moreover, she helped her young mistress with satisfaction. It could be said that she had no selfish motives at all. She couldn't figure out what the third miss meant. "Nanny Yu, do you remember when the third miss became nice to me?" Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and reminded Nanny Yu as well as herself. Did she do anything to make Xiao Caihuan feel that it was profitable? But she didn't think that she had done anything recently that could make Xiao Caihuan feel that it was profitable. It had been a few days since she was granted the marriage. If Xiao Caihuan didn't come to court her, then it was not about the marriage. "Miss, I have something to say, but I don't know if it's true." Being asked by Xiao Wanru, Nanny Yu suddenly thought of something and said after hesitating for a moment. In fact, she really didn't know whether it was true or not, so she didn't dare to say it. "Nanny Yu, tell me," Xiao Wanru said gently. There were no outsiders in the room. Even if Nanny Yu said something terrible, no one would know. This. Nanny Yu was still a little hesitant, but after thinking about it, she felt that she had to tell her master about it. Originally, she thought that it must be false, but after hearing her master's words just now, she thought that it might be true. "I heard that when Prince Qin sent the betrothal gifts in person that day, both the third miss and the fourth miss went to see them. And then?" Xiao Wanru didn't understand for a moment. She tilted her head and asked with a charming raise of her eyebrows. "After that, I heard that the fourth miss went back early, but the third miss didn't come back until His Highness went back," Nanny Yu said meaningfully. Xiao Wanru didn't understand the meaning of her words at first. She blinked her watery eyes blankly and looked at Nanny Yu's strange expression for a long time before she realized it. She pursed her cherry lips and asked at a loss, "Could it be that third sister has been hiding there all the time. It seems to be the case. At that time, I didn't pay much attention to it and thought it was impossible. But now seeing that the third miss is humble to you and wants to please you, I think maybe it is true. Nanny Yu said more and more vaguely. Xiao Wanru couldn't accept such a news for a moment. She could imagine all kinds of reasons, but she had never thought of such a reason. It was said that Xiao Jia wanted to send her the betrothal gifts. Xiao Jia's betrothal meant that she was going to marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. It was impossible for her to be the legal wife, so she could only be a side concubine. If she were to be a side concubine, Chu Qing, who was also the son of the former emperor, had no advantage in other aspects, although he was in better health than Chu Luqian. Moreover, Chu Luqian sent the betrothal gifts in person that day, which dispelled the rumor that he might die at any time. In terms of these aspects, Chu Luqian completely defeated Chu Qing. Chapter 830. Therefore, if Xiao Caihuan approved the marriage offered by Xiao Jia, she might really fall in love with Chu Luqian. What was more, even if Xiao Wanru had been reborn, she had to admit that Chu Luqian was as handsome as a handsome young man coming out of a painting, with a kind of elegant and gentle appearance. Of course, the appearance was just an appearance. It was just a superficial phenomenon that could be seen on the surface. She lowered her watery eyes and remained silent for a while. Her long eyelashes cast uneven shadows under her eyes, making her look a little tired. Miss Qing is here. Yu Jia's voice broke the silence in the room. Xiao Wanru raised her head and nodded to Nanny Yu, indicating that she already knew. Seeing Yu Jia come in with Qing, Nanny Yu knew that Xiao Wanru had something to tell her, so she left. Qing, are your men around? Xiao Wanru took a deep breath, suppressed the trace of displeasure in her heart, and raised her eyes to ask. When in the Yuhui nunnery, it was relatively easy for Qing to mobilize the men given by Chu Luqian. But here was Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru didn't know whether it was convenient for Qing to mobilize the men given by Chu Luqian. Miss, you can send me out to the mansion to have a look, and then I can find them. Qing said. Okay, send them in at night, and they can come to the mansion after nightfall. Xiao Wanru nodded. It was very easy to send Qing out to have a look. Miss, do you want to inform His Highness? Qing said uneasily. No. Xiao Wanru shook her head, paused and said, you can definitely send the news, right? Definitely, miss, don't worry. Qing nodded. Although it was inconvenient for the men sent to protect her in the Yuhui nunnery to enter Duke Xing's mansion during the day, they had been guarding outside the mansion for fear that something would happen. If something happened at night, they could still enter Duke Xing's mansion. Go out and buy some candied plums for me. Tell them that I have a bad taste and need some. The candied plums in the mansion are not to my taste. Miss, I understand. Little Qing took Xiao Wanru's order and left. She was not a first-class servant girl, so it was easier for her to go in and out than Yu Jia and the others. Miss, do you have anything to do tonight? Looking at Qing's back, Yu Jia lowered her voice and asked carefully. Since you have brought it up, you have to find a way to force me to do it before you achieve your goal. After a few days, let alone grandma, even I can think of a way to deal with it. Xiao Wanru said in a low voice, as if she was talking to herself. Miss? Yu Jia became more and more confused. She thought for a while and asked doubtfully, do you mean that old madam and second miss still have a backup plan? In old madam's room, Yu Jia clearly saw that what the second miss was going to say should be related to old madam. Every time the second miss decided to say something, she would subconsciously look at old madam. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and did not explain anymore. In fact, she was not very sure. However, tonight should be a key point. If Xiao Yanru wanted to start with her, she could send him away with the excuse that she was resting. So what should she do to make it inevitable? Looking at Xiao Wanru's faint smile and cold face, Yu Jia couldn't help but have an ominous feeling in her heart. Although it was already spring, the weather was still very cold, especially at night. It was so cold that people felt shivering. If there was nothing else to do, everyone went back to rest early. No one wanted to stay outside on such a cold day with a hot quilt. As soon as night fell, the lights in many courtyards went out. Xiao Jia's room was also lit up, but it was not bright. This was a wing room. The new house had not been decorated yet, so it was so messy that it was almost difficult to stay here. This courtyard was indeed not a good place. It was just casually decorated, and there was no heating device in the wing room. Although Xiao Jia was holding a hand warmer, she was still shivering with cold, so it was impossible for her to write a few words. She asked the servant girl to push away the things around to make more space. Then she went to fetch a hand warmer, and the room became a little warmer. "Miss, are we really going to stay here all night?" The servant girl Liu Xiang coughed a few times and asked. The coal in the hand warmer was not good. It made people cough, especially when they got close to it. She went to ask for coal just now, but she didn't get any good ones. "Let's stay here first." Xiao Jia seemed to have a much better temper. Although she was still shivering with cold, she was not as hot-tempered as before. Liu Xiang remembered that when she went to fetch the coal just now, Miss was still angry and kept scolding the 5th Miss and the 3rd Mississippi. At this time, Xiao Jia didn't scold anyone. Instead, she warmed her hands and seemed to be about to write. In fact, there were only a few words written on the paper on the table, and there were only spots of ink. Xiao Jia narrowed her eyes and warmed her hands again. She wanted to pull her hands away from the hand warmer. As soon as she left her hands, she immediately shivered with cold. She walked to the desk, picked up the pen, and felt that her fingers were stiff. Holding the pen, she stood in front of the table for a while. Suddenly, an idea came to her mind and she scribbled on the paper with the pen in her hand. "Miss, old madam will find out." Liu Xiang was so scared that her face changed. Her master was not favored, and she, as a servant girl, was certainly not favored. Although concubine Lu helped to manage the affairs and she, the servant girl of the 2nd Miss, had stood up, she had not adjusted her mentality. At this time, she panicked and came to hold Xiao Jia's hand. "Miss, please write well. Old madam will not let you stay here and copy books all the time." Liu Xiang held Xiao Jia's hand and begged. Not only would Miss be punished, but they, the servants who followed Miss, would also be punished. Maybe they would be beaten a few times, or even sold. Thinking of the previous servant girls who followed 2nd Miss and ended up being sold, Liu Xiang really couldn't be tough. Every time when the 2nd Miss lost her temper and made trouble, they, the servant girls, were always at a disadvantage. However, the 2nd Miss still didn't understand the situation. She immediately became arrogant when she was a little proud. In the end, not only she was unlucky, but also the servant girls who followed her. "What are you afraid of? It's all right this time," Xiao Jia said indifferently. She pushed away Liu Xiang's hand, took away the paper on the top, and continued to drip ink on the paper below and scribble. Liu Xiang trembled like a fallen leaf in the wind. Her face was pale and she cried, "Little sister." It was not the first time that Xiao Jia said, "It's all right this time." Liu Xiang didn't believe what Xiao Jia said at all. "Don't worry. These will be burned later. It's good to see some ink. Who knows if I wrote or scribbled randomly at this time." Xiao Jia became more and more indifferent. Thinking of the old maid who secretly came to convey the message of old madam, she raised the corner of her mouth and felt very proud. Why can't you see it?" Liu Xiang was not a very smart servant girl. In fact, she couldn't be smart with such a master. The smart servant girls had been killed by Xiao Jia, and the Madam of Jiang didn't intend to keep a few smart and capable servant girls for her. In a while, the fire is going to burn. Who will care about what I wrote here? It's good enough that they can save me. Xiao Jia looked at the beam above her head and clicked her tongue. This house doesn't look good, but it's actually not bad. Liu Xiang still didn't understand Xiao Jie's words, but she heard the word save in Xiao Jie's words. This time, she was so scared that she almost collapsed to the ground. She stammered and asked, "Little Miss, why do you need someone to save you? Is it because of the fire? Then let's run quickly." Liu Xiang connected the words before and after, and it was a little interesting. "Don't run now. Wait a little longer." Xiao Jie lowered her head and scribbled again, one after another. She had a great time playing with it. It was rare that she looked calm and didn't panic at all. "Wait until when? Miss, why is the fire burning?" Liu Xiang still didn't understand. She looked around carefully. There were some messy furniture around, which was not well handled. It was very messy. In the darkness, it seemed that there were many shadows. Liu Xiang was very scared. She was cold and scared, and her upper and lower gums couldn't help but tremble. "Little Miss." Seeing that Xiao Jie ignored her, Liu Xiang said again, "Don't keep calling me. It's annoying." Xiao Jie said unhappily. Of course, the fire had to burn, and it was she who said it. She was not in a hurry at all. Old Madam also meant to wait. It couldn't be too early. Otherwise, it would be bad if the fire was extinguished in a short time when too many people came. "Little Miss." Liu Xiang called again, and her eyes flashed timidly. What's over there, what over there?" Xiao Jie said in annoyance. "It's over there, outside the window. Miss. I seem to see a white figure." Liu Xiang pointed out of the window, and the sound of her upper and lower gums became louder and louder. Even Xiao Jie heard it. She subconsciously looked out of the window, and there was nothing in the dark sky. "Miss, there is, you see." Liu Xiang suddenly screamed, and hugged her head and curled up. Xiao Jie went to see her first. When she heard what Liu Xiang said, she hurriedly looked back, but still saw nothing. Even so, Xiao Jie was afraid. Holding the pen in her hand, she felt that the bottom of her hand was cold and stiff. "Don't talk nonsense." Trying to calm down the panic in her heart, Xiao Jie snapped. Miss, I'm not talking nonsense. There was a white figure just now, and a ghost face flashed by the window. Miss is not far from you." Liu Xiang was so scared that she cried. She whimpered and hugged herself, shaking hard. Xiao Jie also shivered. Liu Xiang had never lied to her, but when she looked back, she didn't see anything. Suddenly, she thought of some rumors in the past, saying that the mansion was haunted. Xiao Jie sat on the chair in a panic and didn't even dare to raise her head. She also shivered with a da-da-da sound. After a long while, she made a big decision. She gritted her teeth and stood up. She tried her best to drag her feet and walked to the table where the oil lamp was placed. She picked up the oil lamp and lit up a curtain that had fallen beside her. She didn't dare to wait any longer. Chapter 831. After lighting the curtain, Xiao Jie went to light some messy things on the side, which were all flammable sundries. After lighting them slightly, they were set on fire. Liu Xiang was frightened by the slowly rising temperature in the room and let go of her hand. She looked at Xiao Jie, who was still lighting the fire, in astonishment. This time, she was so scared that her hands and feet trembled. She almost stared blankly at Xiao Wanru lighting the fire in the room. The fire in the room burned fiercely. The light and temperature of the fire made Xiao Jie's fear disappear. Hearing the sound behind her, she turned around and saw Liu Xiang staring at her with a pair of dead fish eyes. She said angrily, "Come over and help me. Push some of the flammable furniture over there." Miss. Liu Xiang didn't know where the strength came from. She jumped up and pounced on Xiao Jie, knocking Xiao Jie against a cabinet. The oil lamp in her hand fell to the ground and burned Xiao Jie's dress, causing Xiao Jie to scream. "Hurry up, put out the fire for me." Liu Xiang hurriedly put out the fire on Xiao Jie's dress and said anxiously, "Miss, what should we do now?" She was so scared and nervous that she didn't think of the white shadow she saw at the window just now. "Let's go." Looking at the fire that had been set on fire, Xiao Jie kicked hard a few times and finally extinguished the fire on her body. She covered her nose and rushed out. After being stunned for a moment, Liu Xiang turned around and ran out with Xiao Jie at an extremely fast speed. By the time they arrived at the courtyard, the previous room was already burning. Standing in the courtyard, they could still feel the warmth of the fire. "Miss." Liu Xiang wanted to speak again. "Don't talk nonsense. First make yourself look like you escaped from the fire, and then find a place to hide," Xiao Jie ordered. He took a few steps forward and walked to the window, intending to set himself on fire again. Unexpectedly, just as he reached the window, he heard Liu Xiang scream behind him. Just as he was about to turn around, he received a heavy blow on his head. His body went limp and he slowly fell to the ground. A man with a white cloth on his body came out. He pulled off the white cloth and turned out to be a masked man in black. He held one person in each hand and carried them into the darkness. This was just right. He didn't have to spend any effort to meet Fifth Miss's requirements. The fire started, and the blazing fire shone far away in the night, which immediately alarmed some people who hadn't slept yet. Seeing the fire, they knew that the water was gone and shouted loudly. Someone beat the gongs and drums, and the whole Duke Xing's mansion was woken up. When the servants heard that there was a fire, they hurriedly got up and carried buckets of various sizes to extinguish it. This courtyard was a little more remote and was close to the Prime Minister's mansion. The people in the Prime Minister's mansion had already been alarmed. When Duke Xing's mansion was on fire, when Shiqi was just an examinee. This kind of thing had nothing to do with him, but now he had to come over when he saw it. The officials of the Ministry of Justice were supposed to deal with such public security issues. When he came over, the people of Duke Xing's mansion had already been in a mess, and no one noticed that he had brought a few people to help. When they arrived at the site of the fire, they saw that Duke Xing had been waiting there for a long time. Besides Duke Xing, first young master Xiao Hua and third master of Duke Xing's mansion were also there. When they saw Wen Shiqi, they all knew that he was here to help. After thanking him, they asked his people to join the crowd to put out the fire. How did the fire start? Wen Shiqi frowned and asked as a matter of routine. "I don't know. It was fine, but it suddenly caught fire. All the furniture is inside," Xiao Hua answered with a pale face. "No one's new house would look good if it was burned. Who lives here? Has she been rescued?" When Shiqi was concerned about something else. Looking at the fire in front of him, he asked. "This was originally going to be my wedding house. Now there is no one living here. But just now my grandmother sent a message saying that second sister is copying the women's precepts in it, and we haven't found her yet." Xiao Hua answered, looking a little angry and annoyed. "Haven't found her yet?" When Shiqi was stunned and asked anxiously. "No, but there is no one inside. I don't know where second sister is." Xiao Hua also looked very anxious. "I'll go and have a look," When Shiqi said and was about to go forward to have a look. But he was stopped by Xiao Hua. "Everything inside has been burned. Now even the beams of the house may collapse. You can't go in." While speaking, as if to prove Xiao Hua's words, a loud sound came. The house in the middle really collapsed, splashing some sparks. Many people jumped up to beat off the sparks on their bodies. "It's too dangerous here. Step back," Duke Xing's Xiaojing said loudly, while ordering people to pull back those who had been close to the house. The other houses were also unreliable. As the beams of the main house collapsed, other houses also collapsed soon. As soon as the people on their side retreated a little further, the houses collapsed one after another, and sparks splashed out. Fortunately, everyone had listened to Duke Xing's words and retreated a lot earlier, so that no one was hurt. Seeing that most of the houses had collapsed, Duke Xing ordered people to water the fire. "This is your wedding house. Why did you choose it here?" Wen Shiqi looked at the location of the courtyard and then looked at its size and asked in confusion. The size and location of this courtyard obviously didn't match Xiao Hua's identity. It didn't look like a place where the eldest son of lineal descent should live. It was more suitable for an ordinary miss in the mansion, or even a miss of lineal descent would not live in such a courtyard. After all, he was the eldest son of lineal descent and the heir to the family business. How could he live in such a place? I didn't find a suitable place at the moment. Xiao Hua's attention was all on the fire. Hearing Wen Shiqi's question, he answered casually. How could it be gone? Don't you have several big empty courtyards in your mansion? Isn't it more decent and suitable than this one? Wen Shiqi became more and more confused. He knew Duke Xing's mansion well and knew that there were not many masters in Duke Xing's mansion. There were many empty courtyards, so it was impossible to choose such a place. Xiao Hua reached out to rub his forehead and said impatiently, "Grandma asked me to choose one randomly, so I chose this one randomly." His words made Wen Shiqi silent for a while. After a long while, he said, "You are too casual." "I am indeed too casual. I should have seen it clearly at the beginning. It's too late to regret now. There is not only my own furniture in it, but also the furniture sent by Minister Zhao's mansion. This is troublesome," Xiao Hua said regretfully. When newlyweds got married, it was the groom's responsibility to decorate the bridal chamber. However, some women who loved their daughters would send some furniture that their daughters liked. This was what Minister Zhao's mansion did. It's indeed a little troublesome. Wen Shiqi nodded. He also felt that it was not easy to deal with this matter. It was okay to burn their own things, but if the bride's things were burned in this way, they should at least give a reasonable explanation and apologize. For this reason, Duke Xing's mansion was in a much weaker position. Even if the bride's family put forward some other conditions, Duke Xing's mansion had to agree. After all, Duke Xing's mansion had burned all the bride's furniture. For a daughter from an aristocratic family like this, the dowry had been prepared long ago, and some furniture had been prepared since the birth of the daughter. Now, it was really unreasonable for them to burn so many years of painstaking efforts of the bride's family. Minister Zhao is a good person. Wen Shiqi comforted Xiao Hua then. They had been friends for many years, so they were straightforward and didn't need to beat around the bush. I can only hope so, Xiao Hua said with a wry smile. He spread out his hands and didn't know what to do. With such a big fire, even the furniture left might be unusable. The first batch of furniture sent to decorate the bridal chamber had all been burned. Wen Shiqi turned his eyes to the fire. At this time, the fire had weakened. Basins of water were poured on it, and there were only sporadic flames left. It should not be a big problem. Did someone deliberately try to destroy your bridegroom's yard again? Wen Shiqi asked as something inexplicably flashed across his mind. 3 years ago, the fire in Duke Xing's mansion was a case of arson. What was happening now was also a case of arson. At that time, it was the 5th miss of Duke Xing's mansion who was recognized in the fire, but now it was the 2nd miss of Duke Xing's mansion. Was there any connection between them? Wen Shiqi inexplicably felt that there was a connection between the two fires. My yard is not a good place. Who would think of burning it down? Besides, there is no one in the yard except my second sister, who is being punished. I heard from my grandmother that it was because my second sister made a mistake here that my grandmother punished her to copy the women's precepts in the side room at night. Xiao Hua shook his head and said bluntly. He didn't hide anything from Wen Shiqi. Your second sister made a mistake. Wen Shiqi felt that there was something behind it, so he repeated and asked. He glanced sideways at Xiao Hua then. It's not a big deal. It's just that my second sister and third sister quarreled with each other in my chamber, as well as people from Minister Zhao's mansion. Later, my grandmother was very angry and punished my second sister. Xiao Huan said vaguely. It didn't mean that he didn't believe Wen Shiqi, but some words were related to the reputation of the girls in the inner courtyard. Even if they were good friends, he had to stop mentioning it. Wen Shiqi understood. He knew what kind of person Xiao Jie was when he was young. When the two mansions played together, Xiao Jie was not a pleasing person. She would flatter those who were of a higher status than her. She would be at her beck and call as if she was a little servant girl. She would do whatever she was told and never dare to disobey. However, she was very mean to those who were inferior to her. She would trample on them ruthlessly and get carried away. Didn't third Miss Xiao punish you? Wen Shiqi keenly grasped this point and asked. As a friend, he shouldn't ask more questions. It was enough for him to understand. However, as an official of the Ministry of Justice present, he had to continue asking. In fact, not only third sister, but also fifth sister. Xiao Huan also seemed to be in a dilemma. Speaking of this, he stopped and seemed to realize that he had said something indiscreet. He pursed his lips and said, Yuan Qing, don't ask more questions. These things in the inner courtyard have nothing to do with what is happening now. There is no need to investigate it. Chapter 832. Since I've seen it, I have to investigate it. Otherwise, when the Ministry of Justice asks about it, it will be embarrassing if I don't know anything even though I'm right next to your house. Wen Shiqi said slowly and methodically, you'd better tell me what's going on. It's better for us to talk about it than to ask your sisters. Now the second miss of your mansion is missing. If something really happens to her, it will be a murder case. Even if the victim's family didn't come to report the murder case, the Ministry of Justice would definitely investigate it since they were there. Wen Shiqi used both the carrot and the stick in his words, but there was another meaning in it. Xiao Huan glanced at him with a wry smile and said helplessly, what do you want to know? Just say it. In fact, it's my grandmother who told me about it. As for whether it's true or not, it may be because of my grandmother's prejudice, so you can't take it seriously. Just say it. I can tell it clearly. Wen Shiqi nodded and dispelled his concerns. Seeing that Wen Shiqi was acting in a businesslike manner, Xiao Huan was also helpless, so he described what had happened before in the words of Old Madam. In Old Madam's words, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Wanru came to pick on Xiao Jie, when she was decorating the new house for Xiao Huan. They said that the yard was too small and that they had to move to a new house. However, since the new house had been chosen, it was impossible for them to move to another one. However, they didn't give up and even brought up the first miss of Minister Zhao's mansion. When they were quarreling fiercely, someone from Minister Zhao's mansion came. Hearing the sisters quarreling about the first miss of Zhao, the people from Minister Zhao's mansion were very angry and brought the matter to Old Madam. That's the cause of the matter. Second sister was punished because of this. She was asked to copy the women's precepts in my yard. Xiao Huan sighed with a headache and said. It was really a headache to talk about it. It seems that the second miss didn't do anything wrong. It was the third miss and the fifth miss who made mistakes. Why didn't the two misses punish them, but the second miss? After hearing Xiao Huan's words, Wen Shiqi asked after thinking for a while. You know that our mother is not in the mansion now, and eldest sister is not here either, so the matter of choosing a new house was entrusted to second sister. This courtyard was also chosen by second sister. Grandmother also felt that second sister did not choose well. Although third sister and fifth sister were wrong to find fault, it was also for my own good. She wanted to choose a big courtyard for me. Grandmother said that it was fine if second sister did not choose well, but she did not dare to change. How? Wen Shiqi asked. I'm not sure either. Maybe she was asked to pick again, and then she was punished to come here. I didn't expect such a thing to happen, it's really. Xiao Huan shook his hands, feeling extremely helpless. The cause was his new house, and it was also his new house that had an accident. However, he did not know what had happened. Now he could not live in this courtyard anymore. Not to mention that Xiao Jia was not in the courtyard now. The courtyard was almost burnt, and he could not live in it even if he wanted to. Moreover, this matter was over now, and the minister's mansion would definitely be angry. Xiao Hua could not be considered a person now. So you want to choose a new house? When Shiqi looked at Xiao Hua who looked sad. It seems that this is the only way. Xiao Hua nodded. Let Minister Zhao's mansion choose. As long as there is no one living in it, choose a suitable one, and it can appease their anger. When Shiqi comforted Xiao Hua Now, this is the only way. Xiao Hua nodded. While they were talking in a low voice, many people went to look for Xiao Jia but they still did not see her. Even if they pulled up the beam in the middle, they still could not see anything. Xiao Jia seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Duke Xing was very anxious. He asked people to turn over the whole collapsed roof, but there was still nothing. Xiao Jia was also not there. Many people shouted, "Second miss! Second miss!" When the roof was turned over, it meant that Xiao Jia was still alive. However, there were still some places that had not been turned over, so they really did not know how she was. Xiao Jia woke up in this kind of shouting. She covered her head and stood up. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Hearing the shout of "second miss" coming from not far away, Xiao Jia responded subconsciously. She closed her eyes and then opened them again. She saw Xiao Jing's excited face. She had never received such attention from her father. "Second miss, it's really you. Why are you here?" An old maid said excitedly. Everyone thought that Xiao Jia could not escape death this time. Unexpectedly, she was not only not dead, but also alive. Except for some burn marks on her dress, other parts of her body were clean. Xiao Jia was now standing in the pavilion behind a big tree outside the yard that had been burned before. The tree was very big and seemed to shelter her from the wind and rain, covering half of the pavilion. When the yard was on fire just now, although everyone rushed over to put out the fire, no one noticed the pavilion over there. Although it was right in front of them, they just could not see it. They just focused on putting out the fire. So, second miss was not in the room, but fell asleep here. "Miss! A servant girl suddenly rushed in from outside the crowd and hugged Xiao Jia. Everyone looked and found that it was Xiao Jia's servant girl named Liu Xiang. The servant girl was also unscathed, but there was a trace of black at the corner of her dress, which seemed to be related to the fire. "Father, elder brother." Xiao Jia was still a little dizzy. For a moment, she did not understand why these two people appeared in front of her. She closed her eyes again and wondered if she was dreaming. "Why are you here?" Xiao Jing looked Xiao Jia up and down and asked coldly. I just came out for a walk." Xiao Jia was a little disjointed. She smiled awkwardly and tried to remember what had happened before. "Come out for a walk? Why didn't I see you just now?" Xiao Jing said coldly. I didn't see you just now. Maybe I left just now." Xiao Jia laughed dryly again, and her smile became more and more forced. At this time, she finally remembered how she got out of the room. Originally, when the room was on fire, she found an excuse to leave and then came back later. Now that the room had been burned down, she should show her innocence at this time. "Why did you leave?" Xiao Jing said coldly. I. Fifth sister. Xiao Jia turned around as if she was looking for Xiao Wanru. "What happened to your fifth sister?" Xiao Jing asked. "Fifth sister's servant girl. Just now, fifth sister's servant girl happened to come over and said that what happened today was not fifth sister's idea, so I was going to see fifth sister. But on the way, I thought it was not good to disturb fifth sister at this time. It's so late." Xiao Jia had come to her senses and answered in a very orderly manner. "Why did Wanru's servant girl come here?" This place is very far from her place. Xiao Jing didn't quite believe it. Father, it's true. It's true. Fifth sister's servant girl. I've seen her before. Although I couldn't remember at first, I remembered when she told me later. Xiao Jia said anxiously with a look of fear. Xiao Jing reached out to pull Liu Xiang over and said, Father, if you don't believe me, you can ask Liu Xiang. Liu Xiang also saw that servant girl. Liu Xiang was pulled painfully by Xiao Jia. Xiao Jia pulled hard and pulled a piece of her flesh. Now seeing Xiao Jing's eyes turn to her, she nodded repeatedly and said, Yes, I saw her with my miss. Liu Xiang's hand was pulled so painfully, which represented Mrs. Hint. How could Liu Xiang not understand? But in fact, Liu Xiang was also very confused. She had just woken up. When she woke up, there was no one around her. She was thrown in the corner. Hearing the sound outside the wall, she hurriedly turned around and saw Xiao Jia in the crowd. She immediately had a backbone and rushed over. But now she was also dizzy. She didn't know what had happened, but she knew that it couldn't be said casually. She immediately followed Xiao Jia's words and lowered her eyes subconsciously to hide the panic at the bottom of her eyes. In fact, she really didn't know what her miss meant when she mentioned fifth Mrs. Servant Girl. She didn't see fifth Mrs. Servant Girl just now. After leaving the room, she felt a pain in her head and then fainted. Go and invite fifth Miss here. Xiao Jing ordered an old maid with a gloomy face. The old maid nodded and hurriedly ran out, but it didn't take long for her to come back in a hurry. There was no one behind her. Duke, when the fire started just now, fifth Miss was afraid and went to old Madam's courtyard. Now she is in old Madam's courtyard. What do you think of this? Let's go to old Madam's courtyard. Xiao Jing found that the fire had been completely put out and asked someone to send others away. Since fifth Miss was fine and the fire was also put out, he could deal with other things tomorrow. He took Xiao Jia and Xiao Hua into old Madam's courtyard. When Shiqi followed beside Xiao Hua then, his eyes fell on Xiao Jia's dress, and the corners of his mouth curled up with a thoughtful smile. Then his eyes fell on Xiao Jia's hair, which was messy and stained with some dust. When they came to old Madam's Chuntang courtyard, Xiao Wanru sat in front of old Madam calmly. Seeing them come in, she hurriedly stood up, bowed to Xiao Jing, who was walking in front, and then bowed to Xiao Hua then. Finally, she raised her beautiful eyes and was stunned to meet a pair of clear eyes. She was slightly stunned, but immediately bowed again. Then she stood aside obediently and waited for old Madam's order. Old Madam didn't look very good. She didn't look directly at Xiao Jing, who was walking in front. Instead, she looked at Xiao Jia, who was half hidden behind the crowd. She just glanced at Xiao Jia, and then turned away, as if she didn't see Xiao Jia, just now. Xiao Wanru had been paying attention to old Madam's expression. She saw that old Madam just glanced at Xiao Jia, without worry, joy, or other changes in her eyes. Obviously, Xiao Wanru was not surprised to see Xiao Jia here. Xiao Wanru couldn't help sneering in her heart. As expected, this was planned by old Madam. Chapter 833. Fifth sister, what did you want to tell me by sending a servant girl here just now? Xiao Jia leaned close to Xiao Wanru. Although her voice was very soft, no one in the room spoke at this moment. Her words immediately attracted everyone's attention. Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jia in astonishment and said, Second sister, when did I send someone here? Didn't you send someone here? Xiao Jia's face became very ugly and she said anxiously, Why didn't anyone come here? That servant girl is obviously the servant girl in your courtyard. The servant girl in my courtyard? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows and repeated. Yes, the servant girl in your courtyard. I can't tell her name, but I will definitely recognize her when I see her, Xiao Jia said anxiously and hurriedly. Xiao Wanru pursed her lips and showed a smile on her face after a long while. However, the smile was a little cold. Seeing that Xiao Jia said so firmly and was about to go to her courtyard to recognize the servant girl, needless to say, there was indeed such a person in her courtyard who had contacted her. Second sister, are you sure? Xiao Wanru asked. Of course. Fifth sister, after you sent someone to ask the servant girl to arouse me, the courtyard where I lived before was on fire. Fifth sister, do you really not know it? Seeing Xiao Wanru's expression, Xiao Jia's flustered heart calmed down a little. It seemed that this matter could still be remedied. Second miss, fifth miss, what are you talking about? Old Madam, who was sitting in the upper seat, coughed heavily and said. Except for the two of them, everyone else in the room had sat down as guests and hosts. When Shichi glanced at Xiao Wanru, who was a little confused, and inexplicably felt that Xiao Wanru, who was standing in the room at this time, looked a little aggrieved and sad. His heart suddenly beat a few times and his handsome eyebrows frowned. He didn't like this feeling very much. There was a kind of uncontrollable anger towards other people in the room, which was controlled by her. He took a deep breath and suppressed the irritation in his heart. When he looked up again, his eyes were clear. As an official of the Ministry of Justice, he should listen to everyone's confession calmly. Moreover, this was the matter of Duke Xing's mansion. Before the truth was found out, it was inappropriate for him to say anything. What he should do was to maintain a detached attitude. Grandma, I have been copying books in my eldest brother's bridal chamber, but later fifth younger sister sent a servant girl to tell me what happened today. I thought these things couldn't be spread clearly through a servant girl, so I left to find fifth younger sister, but I didn't expect that the room would be on fire after I left for a while. Xiao Jia looked at old madam in panic and fear. Xiao Wanru suddenly raised her eyes and looked at her coldly. Her words were really good. She had already blamed her for the fire. His words implied that he had sent someone to lure Xiao Jia out, and then let them kill her. Don't talk nonsense. Your fifth sister must have something to tell you. Old madam's face darkened. She glanced at Wen Shiqi, who was sitting beside her, and reprimanded him. Xiao Jia's eyes turned red. She lowered her head aggrievedly, but did not dare to say anything. She just held her handkerchief, looking as if she wanted to say something but did not dare to. How's the fever? Are you hurt? Old madam scolded Xiao Jia and turned to ask Xiao Jing. No one was hurt, but this courtyard can't be used anymore. Xiao Jing frowned and said with a headache, other things are fine, but the furniture sent by the minister's mansion has been burned. It's not easy to explain to the minister's mansion. All of them have been burned. Old madam straightened up and felt that it was not easy to deal with this matter. Almost all of them have been burned. Even if they were taken out, half of them have been burned and can't be used anymore. Xiao Jing said helplessly, I'm afraid. Before he finished his words, everyone in the room understood that it was indeed Duke Xing's mansion's mistake. It was inevitable that the minister's mansion would be angry. Now they had to find a way to appease the anger of the minister's mansion. What conditions do they want? Agree to them. Old madam said tiredly. It was indeed difficult for an elderly person to bear being suddenly woken up in the middle of the night, especially on such a cold night. Although old madam's room was very warm, the warmth was diluted by so many people coming in. Nanny Yu brought another heater over and handed it to Madame Dowager. Madame Dowager hugged it tightly and rolled her eyes slightly. She seemed to be a little energetic, but no matter how one looked at it, she was trying her best to be energetic. We can only agree to them in this way. No matter what conditions they put forward, it's always our Duke Xing's mansion's fault. Xiao Jing also nodded and glanced at the people present. He put his hands on the armrest of the chair and stood up to leave. Since this matter had to be decided by the minister's mansion and old madam was not in good spirits at this time, he could only wait until tomorrow. When he put his hands on the armrest of the chair, he heard Xiao Wanru ask Xiao Jia in a low voice, Second sister, did you really see the servant girl I sent? Is she really a servant girl in my courtyard? But I didn't send a servant girl here. Xiao Wanru blinked her eyes innocently and looked at Xiao Jia. Just now, Unconsciously, she had already leaned against Xiao Jia. The two of them stood together. Her voice was not loud, but it was just the right time. Xiao Jing stopped talking and was about to say goodbye to old madam when Xiao Wanru's words came in at this time. When Shiqi picked up the teacup at hand, took a sip, and slowly put it down. He knew that he couldn't just let it go like this. Second sister, are you trying to shirk the responsibility? Seeing that Xiao Jia didn't react, Xiao Wanru continued to ask. Her face was facing Xiao Jia, so she didn't notice that everyone in the room had turned their eyes to them. She didn't see it, but Xiao Jia saw it. Not only did she see it, but she also saw old madam's cold eyes. She couldn't help shivering with fear and hurriedly said, "Fifth sister, don't talk nonsense. It's really a servant girl in your courtyard. If you don't believe it, call the servant girl in your courtyard over. I can definitely pick her out." After saying that, she tried to show that she was in the right. She could really pick out the servant girl. Old madam had told her who it was before, and she had seen her. Second sister, are you really going to point out the servant girl? Xiao Wanru asked with a faint smile. Of course. I can definitely pick her out. I just don't understand why you asked the servant girl to come to me at this time. You just said that I was trying to shirk the responsibility. I think you did something wrong. Sensing her confidence, Xiao Jia kept a straight face and straightened her back. There was indeed such a person. She was really not afraid that Xiao Wanru would continue to inquire about it. Even if she went to find the servant girl, she could find her. Since Xiao Jia was confident, she became arrogant again. What nonsense are you talking about? Get down. Old madam, who was sitting on the top, looked a little defeated and reprimanded Xiao Jia with a gloomy face. It seemed that she didn't want to make a big deal out of it and wanted to keep the peace. Just like before, old madam said this when Xiao Jia was about to point out the servant girl. It sounded as if she was wholeheartedly protecting Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. Old madam was partial to everyone, but not to her. In fact, she was using a vague attitude to shift the blame to her. It didn't mean that it was not the case. Old madam's protection really made people suspect that Xiao Wanru had done something. Although it was Xiao Caihuan who quarreled with Xiao Jia during the day, Xiao Wanru went there with Xiao Caihuan at that time. Xiao Wanru quarreled with Xiao Caihuan and harbored hatred in her heart. After being reprimanded by old madam, it was possible that she was unwilling to do something. Grandma. Xiao Jia was obviously not in the wrong, but now she was reprimanded by old madam. For a moment, she felt so aggrieved that she was about to cry again. According to old madam, she really shouldn't mention it at this time. But when she remembered that Xiao Wanru said that she wanted to shirk her responsibility, Xiao Jia felt unwilling to let Xiao Wanru go like this. Xiao Jia had finally grasped Xiao Wanru's weakness. Xiao Yenru felt reluctant to let it go, but she did not dare to disobey old madam's order. Grandmother, since too. Elder sister, if you see my people, can you ask second sister to identify them? When the fire broke out just now, the people in my courtyard were also alarmed. They should be up at this time. Xiao Wanru turned to old madam unhurriedly and continued the topic of old madam. Old madam looked at Xiao Wanru with anger and disappointment in her eyes. Wanru, let's talk about your matter tomorrow. Your grandma was frightened tonight and couldn't bear it. Xiao Jing coughed in a low voice to relieve the embarrassment. Xiao Wanru shook her head and said, Second uncle, I think it's better to make it clear today. It happens that Lord Wen is also here. Let Lord Wen listen in. I'm afraid that after tonight, the so-called servant girl in my courtyard may have an accident. At that time, there will be no evidence, and I can't explain it clearly. Xiao Wanru shook her head and said. Xiao Jing looked a little embarrassed when he was refused by a junior. Then Xiao Wanru's words made him even more displeased and his face darkened. The servant girl in your courtyard is fine. How could something happen to her? Don't talk nonsense. Go back and have a rest. After saying that, he was about to stand up and didn't want to talk with Xiao Wanru anymore. It was already late tonight, and everyone was tired now. Since the fire had been put out, they could deal with other things tomorrow. When Shiqi's hand gently touched the delicate pattern on the teacup, he lowered his head slightly and showed a faint smile at the corners of his mouth. He waited quietly for Xiao Wanru to continue. "Second uncle, please wait a moment. I suspect that someone wants to frame me by using the servant girl in my courtyard. Please uphold justice." Xiao Wanru blinked her watery eyes and said, "Second sister, can you point out the servant girl tonight and let her tell the truth?" "Fifth miss, it's too late now. Let's do it tomorrow." Old Madam finally opened her mouth and said coldly. Xiao Wanru raised her eyes to look at Old Madam and said softly, "Grandma, let's stop what happened today. It should be over soon. How about you pick out the servant girl and protect her in my yard to protect her?" "How dare you?" Old Madam scolded. What kind of rule was it to let her, a dignified old madam of Duke's mansion, protect a servant girl? "Grandma, please wait for a while. I just want to ask you to be a witness to prove my innocence." Xiao Wanru seemed to hear old madam's scolding and still said. Then she raised her eyes to look at Xiao Jia, and said provocatively, "Second sister, you dare to do it." Chapter 834. Xiao Jia, was not willing to let Xiao Wanru off. After being provoked by Xiao Wanru and feeling very confident, she was really not afraid of Xiao Wanru's request for confirmation. She immediately raised her head and said, "Why wouldn't I dare? I'll look for her. What will you say after I find her? If I find her, I'll take it that you don't want to hurt me." Xiao Wanru slightly curved the corners of her mouth, which looked like a smile but was not a smile. "If I find her, I'll take it that I don't want to hurt you? Fifth sister, you really take advantage of me by saying that," Xiao Jia said with a sneer. She had originally followed old madam's order and did not argue with Xiao Wanru on this matter. However, the more Xiao Wanru said, the more she could not bear it. Xiao Jia, did not intend to give in to Xiao Wanru anymore. "What do you mean, second sister?" Xiao Wanru asked. "I mean that if I can't find her, it will be my fault, and I will kowtow to you to apologize in front of you. If I find her, it will be my fault, and you have to kowtow to me to apologize in front of Grandma," Xiao Jia said with a sneer. She was bound to win this matter. Old Madam sat on it with a gloomy face, but she did not stop Xiao Jia, which made Xiao Jia, more confident. She looked at Xiao Wanru with an increasingly complacent look. Why would she let Xiao Wanru go so easily when she was sure that she would win? Of course, she could not really do anything to Xiao Wanru. She just proved that Xiao Wanru had sent someone here, and she did not say that she had seen Xiao Wanru send someone to set the fire. Others might not know how the fire started, but Xiao Jia knew it clearly. "Second sister, your condition sounds fair, but in fact, it is not fair. Second sister, can your apology be the same as mine?" Xiao Wanru said with a faint smile. The identity of a daughter of lineal descent made the daughter of a concubine breathless. In aristocratic families, lineal descent and concubine descent had always been distinguished. Xiao Jia, the daughter of lineal descent, was lower than Xiao Wanru's. If the daughter of lineal descent did something wrong, she must apologize to the daughter of lineal descent. However, if the daughter of lineal descent did something wrong, she did not necessarily have to apologize to the daughter of lineal descent, and she even had to kowtow to apologize in front of everyone. From this point of view, what Xiao Jia said was indeed unfair. Xiao Jia's face turned red. She was not ashamed, but angry and annoyed. As a daughter of non-lineal descent, she was inferior to others in the whole Duke Xing's mansion. Now Xiao Wanru mentioned it again in front of so many people. Xiao Jia felt deeply ashamed and her blood rushed to her head. She glared at Xiao Wanru with hatred, as if Xiao Wanru had done something unpardonable. "Fifth sister, what do you mean?" Gritting her teeth, Xiao Jia finally couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. Xiao Wanru glanced at Xiao Jia with a very calm attitude, which formed a sharp contrast with Xiao Jia's exasperation and hatred. I don't mean anything else. I just mean that second sister's method is unfair. If I'm wrong, I will apologize to second sister, but I don't need to kowtow to ask for forgiveness. As for second sister, if you're wrong, I don't need you to kowtow to me. Although Xiao Jia was a daughter of non-lineal descent, she was the elder sister. If she was wrong, it would be fine if she apologized to her, but if she kowtowed to her, others would gossip about her. Moreover, Xiao Wanru's original intention was not to suppress Xiao Jia. Not only would she not suppress Xiao Jia, but she would also give her the opportunity so that she could climb up. Secondary wife? If her second uncle had a secondary wife, many things could be dealt with separately. Xiao Jia's concubine, Xiao Wanru, thought highly of her. Xiao Jing actually had several concubines, but the one who really gave birth to the child was Xiao Jia's biological mother, concubine Lu. Concubine Lu was originally Madame of Jiang's servant girl. Later, it was said that Madame of Jiang took the initiative to open the door for her and became one of Xiao Jing's concubines. In the past, she also kept a low profile in the mansion. She was very respectful to Madame of Jiang and usually got along well with other concubines. Although she didn't look impressive, at least she could give birth to the child safely, who was Xiao Jing's only daughter of non-lineal descent, Xiao Jia. Such a low-key person lived a good life in Duke Xing's mansion. The fact that she could give birth to a child in the hands of Madame of Jiang and Xiao Jing showed that concubine Lu was very resourceful. Recently, concubine Lu had helped third Madame manage the household affairs. Xiao Wanru had inquired about it and found that concubine Lu managed the household affairs in an orderly manner. It was said that this was also because she had served Madame of Jiang before and had seen how Madame of Jiang handled the household affairs. She had been serving Madame of Jiang and later became a concubine who could give birth to a child. Although the child she gave birth to was a daughter, it showed that this concubine Lu was not simple. She had the opportunity and the person, and the only thing she lacked was ambition. Judging from concubine Lu's behavior in the past, she was definitely not the kind of person who acted recklessly. But if she was not reckless, there would be reckless people. Xiao Jia was ambitious, but it was not sure whether her ambition could persuade concubine Lu now. Of course, she would not let go of such a good opportunity to belittle Xiao Jia. Only by provoking Xiao Jia could it be possible to provoke concubine Lu behind her. After hearing Xiao Wanru's words, Xiao Jia secretly gritted her teeth and had to agree. Gritting his teeth, he had no choice but to agree. If she didn't want to kowtow, then so be it. As long as this lass apologized to him and apologized, at least in this residence, she would have to avoid him when she saw him, and he could use this as leverage against her. Okay. That's it. Xiao Jia nodded hard, turned to old madam, and said, Grandma, since fifth sister doesn't believe what I said, I will go to fifth sister's yard to identify her. At that time, I can also prove my innocence. If she proved her innocence, Xiao Wanru would not be innocent. With her long eyelashes fluttering twice, Xiao Wanru raised her head and looked at old madam, who had a gloomy face. Since she didn't say a word and didn't stop her, it meant that she allowed it. Her eyes were as deep as a pool of cold, without any warmth. Fifth miss, do you really want second miss to identify her? Old madam finally spoke and glanced at Xiao Wanru with a gloomy face. Grandma, let second sister's people look for her. I really didn't ask anyone to come over and talk to second sister. Xiao Wanru looked at old madam extremely calmly and said. Then, her long eyelashes fell, carrying a bit of tiredness and helplessness. The uneven shadows under the light made her delicate face pale as snow, inexplicably making people feel weak and delicate. Standing in a corner, it was as if she couldn't mingle with the people around her. Even though there were many people standing around her, she was lonely. When Shichi's eyes fell on the teacup in front of him, it seemed that he was focused on the patterns on the teacup, but only he knew that after glancing at the delicate girl just now, he felt a sharp pain in his heart, as if there was something tangled in it, which made him very sad and uncomfortable. He tried his best to ignore this feeling and stared at the teacup in front of him, but what he saw was still the delicate pink face hanging down. She was angry and smiling, as if she was in a painting or deeply engraved in his memory. Everything on the teacup was still her. No matter how he looked at it, it was still her. However, she looked sad most of the time. Even though she was smiling, she gave people a feeling of loneliness and sadness, as if she had no one to rely on. It was originally a woman's sorrow that she wanted to rely on but had no one to rely on. Everything around her was very lively and happy, but it was others who were lively. While she was alone, there was a place in his heart that was faintly collapsing. He couldn't control the feeling that a glance had lasted for 1,000 years or a glance of 1,000 years. The glance just now seemed to have traveled through 1,000 years, which made all his emotions in the past slowly gather together, including the indifference at the beginning, the suspicion later, and the disgust at the end. All kinds of emotions were deeply entangled. He had always been an intelligent person. He had never thought of it before because he felt that it was absolutely impossible, and he had never thought in this direction. Now, all of his thoughts were filled with all sorts of emotions because of that fleeting glance just now. Many of his senses were becoming clearer and clearer, and he understood more and more. His heart, which had always been calm, lost its usual calm rhythm and beat a little out of control. He reached out and slowly held the teacup with deep eyes. He slowly took a sip, raised his head, listened quietly to the movement in the room, and didn't look at Xiao Wanru again. In this case, go and investigate it. Old Madam became a little impatient, waved her hand and said, "Yes, Grandma, I'll go right away." Xiao Jia nodded and turned to leave, but was stopped by Xiao Wanru. "Second sister, you don't have to go. It's so late, and it's not appropriate for you to go there like this." Xiao Jia stopped and looked at Xiao Wanru with a sarcastic smile. "Fifth sister, are you afraid?" "It's okay. At most, I will ask you to apologize later. I can't ask you to kowtow." She thought that Xiao Wanru stopped her because she had a guilty conscience. Xiao Wanru shook her head with a smile and said, "Second sister, how can you think that I'm afraid? How can I be afraid? It's not me who called her, and it's not her. I'm just worried that you will be tired after running around in the middle of the night. It's better to ask a servant girl to recognize her." Xiao Jia didn't keep up with Xiao Wanru's thoughts. After being stunned for a moment, she asked subconsciously, "Who will go to find the servant girl?" Xiao Wanru glanced at Xiao Jia and said with a smile, "Second sister, it's very good for Liu Xiang. She can go to find the servant girl, so you don't have to run around. Liu Xiang was with you before, so she should have seen the servant girl." Xiao Jia opened her mouth, and her complacent look immediately became flustered. Originally, she was going to tell Liu Xiang about it, but then it happened so suddenly that she and Liu Xiang both fainted. When they woke up, they were seen by someone. Liu Xiang and Liu Xiang didn't have any good words, so Liu Xiang didn't know which maid it was. Xiao Jia had a bad feeling in her heart. She fainted before she could say anything to Liu Xiang. However, an idea flashed across her mind and she hurriedly said, "When the servant girl in your courtyard came over, Liu Xiang hadn't come back yet. Liu Xiang happened to not see it. Second sister, when you left, did you go out alone and didn't wait for Liu Xiang to come back?" Xiao Wanru continued to ask. Seeing that Xiao Jia was forced to retreat by Xiao Wanru and even had a cold sweat on her face, Old Madam, who was sitting above, put down the teacup in her hand heavily. When she was about to speak, she was interrupted by another clear voice. "Second Miss Xiao, when you were in the fire, you said that your servant girl also saw it, and that servant girl testified for you. Now do you want to retract your testimony?" Chapter 835. Seeing Old Madam's impatience, Xiao Wanru knew that Old Madam was going to intervene, so she waited quietly to step in. Unexpectedly, Wen Shiqi intervened at this time. She had thought that Wen Shiqi would say a few words after the truth came to light at the end. She rolled her watery eyes in surprise, which were beautiful, gentle, but cold and alert. Wen Shiqi lowered his eyes slightly, but then raised them again with a friendly and gentle smile. Compared with Chu Luchen, who pretended to be harmless and gentle, when Shichi's gentleness was revealed from the bottom of his heart, which could make people feel good about him. Second miss, many people heard what you said at the fire site just now, including Duke Xing and the first young master. How do you explain it now? When Shichi turned his eyes to Xiao Jia, He was still smiling at Xiao Jia, but his words were very sharp, as if he was going to drag Xiao Jia, to the court for interrogation. The words he used were also the words used in the court. Xiao Jia had never seen such a scene. Hearing it, she panicked. At this time, she remembered that in order to make her words more credible, she had asked Liu Xiang to testify. At this time, it was a little unreasonable to say that Liu Xiang was not there. She looked at old madam with her mouth agape, hoping that old madam could give her a hint. Old madam was so angry that she scolded Xiao Jia, in her heart. She had known that Xiao Jia, was useless, but she didn't expect her to be so stupid. It seemed that Xiao Jia, could not justify herself. Old madam coughed in a low voice and scolded her, "Why did you talk nonsense just now?" She regarded Xiao Jia's words at the fire site as nonsense and couldn't be trusted. At the same time, it showed that what she said now was true. "Yes, I saw so many of you surrounding me at that time. I was afraid, so I said so." "It's not true." Reminded by old madam, Xiao Jia immediately came to her senses and hurriedly waved her hand. At that time, Xiao Jia didn't dare to say that she seemed to have been knocked out. A miss from an aristocratic family was very particular about her reputation. If she was knocked out and left alone in a corner, her reputation would be ruined. Moreover, there were so many people at that time. She couldn't tell anyone about it. "Second miss, do you mean that you were afraid, so you asked the servant girl to testify at that time?" When Shichi asked with a smile. "Yes, I was afraid at that time, so I said that in a panic." Xiao Jia insisted. "Well, even if you told me about the servant girl because you were afraid, can you tell me the scene when you left the room at that time? Was there a fire at that time?" When Shichi continued to ask. Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on the corner of Xiao Jia's skirt. There was a burn mark there, but it was not only on her body, but also on Xiao Jing and Xiao Hua. They just came from the fire site, so it was not a big deal to have 1 or 2 burn marks on their bodies. She raised the corners of her mouth slightly and already knew what Wen Shichi was going to say. Others might be accidentally splashed by the fire, but when Xiao Jia appeared in the fire site, the fire should be about to go out or had already gone out. In fact, it was hard to tell the burn marks on her body. "When I left, of course there was no fire. I originally wanted to ask fifth sister about it, but when I was about to arrive, I remembered that fifth sister might have fallen asleep, so I turned back." Xiao Jia could only say this now, and she secretly panicked. When she was young, she was afraid of Wen Shichi, so she certainly didn't dare to play with him. She thought that the little child of Deputy Prime Minister Wen's mansion was smarter than others. Every time she wanted to hide something, she couldn't. "Second miss, since you left before the fire started and came here after the fire went out, how did you get the burn mark on your body?" When Shichi's eyes fell on Xiao Jia's dress, where there was a burn mark. Old madam sat on the chair and her face changed dramatically. She glared at the burn mark on Xiao Jia's body. Of course, she also saw the burn mark on Xiao Jia's body. However, when she saw the burn mark on her second son and eldest grandson, she didn't care about it and thought that Xiao Jia's clothes were dipped in sparks just now. Unexpectedly, when Xiao Jia came back, the fire had gone out. The fire had gone out, but her dress was burned. Where did the fire come from? Old madam was so angry that she almost burst out burning sparks. She just wanted to crack open Xiao Jia's head and see how could there be such a stupid person. I. Xiao Jia not only sweated on her forehead, but also all over her body. Her eyes fluttered and she suddenly said in a hurry, I went there with fifth sister's servant girl, but when I came back, I carried the lantern alone. I fell on the way and the lantern overturned. The fire inside burned my dress. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and slapped it out. Xiao Jie's words became smoother and smoother. In the end, she even felt that it was flawless. Anyway, she said that she fell and fell. How did you fall, second miss? When Shichi still didn't let her go. He stared at her closely and asked. His eyes showed Xiao Jie's deep and serious panic. Xiao Jie opened her mouth. There seemed to be a flash of white light in her mind. Some things in her memory suddenly came to her mind. She panicked so much that her face immediately turned pale. Even her lips trembled a few times, but she couldn't make a sound. Seeing Xiao Jie's sudden reaction, Xiao Wanru looked at her in surprise and then at Wen Shiqi. The smile on Wen Shiqi's face had faded, and there was a sense of seriousness and fierceness on his face. He pointed at Xiao Jie, like an unsheathed sword. However, Xiao Jie's reaction was also very strange. Even though Wen Shiqi seemed a little nervous, her face would not change so drastically. Xiao Jie frowned slightly and thought, is there any reason that I don't know? Second miss, tell me how you fell. After that, you can ask Lord Wen to record it. It's cold, and Lord Wen has been waiting for a long time. Old Madam said impatiently. It was obvious that she wanted to drive her guest away. If it weren't for Wen Shiqi, it would have been much smoother at this time. Old Madam felt inexplicably annoyed. Without great elder princess, Wen Shiqi came to make trouble. She just wanted Xiao Jie to make it clear so that Wen Shiqi could go back. I just knelt down and fell, so my skirt was burned. Being reprimanded by Old Madam, Xiao Jie woke up from her memory and hurriedly explained in a panic. If the skirt was burned, the skirt should reach the fire. Second miss, are you sure that you fell like this and not in other ways? Or I'll say something wrong again in a moment of panic. Wen Shiqi said with a smile on his face, looking a little bit calm. I fell like this. I'm very sure, Xiao Jie said in a hurry. You can be sure that's the best. Wen Shiqi turned his head unhurriedly to look at Old Madam and reported, Old Madam, I've asked all the questions. Now I have a conclusion that second Miss Xiao lied. His words shocked everyone in the room and they all looked at Xiao Jie in surprise. I didn't lie. I really fell like this. Xiao Jie had no confidence. Being looked at by others, she immediately shook her head in a panic. Yuan Qing, what did you find? Xiao Hua looked at Wen Shiqi and asked. Old Madam looked at Wen Shiqi coldly and was full of displeasure. Wen Shiqi ignored Old Madam's gaze and just reached out to point at Xiao Jie's head. Old Madam, first young master, look. Second Miss Xiao said that she just knelt down and fell to the ground and only her skirt was burned, but her hair was messy and covered with dust. She didn't kneel down and fall like this. Just now I asked her again and again if she could be sure, and she repeatedly said that it was like this. In fact, she lied. Wen Shiqi was relatively tall, so he could clearly see Xiao Jie's head from where he stood. Xiao Jing and Xiao Hua were also tall, so they could also see Xiao Jie's head. However, no one noticed it on the way here. At this time, when they looked carefully, they found that there was some dust in the messy hair and even a small stone hanging on her head. It was obvious that she hit her head on the ground. Second Miss Xiao, is there any reason why you can't say it? Wen Shiqi said and pressed. At this time, Xiao Jie was really flustered. She hurriedly wanted to hold her head with both hands, but immediately knew that it was futile. She could only turn to Old Madam and say, Grandma, Grandma. Another clear voice interrupted her. Xiao Wanru took a step forward to Old Madam, bowed sideways to her respectfully, and then raised her body with her watery eyes falling on Old Madam and said, Grandma, please do me justice. Xiao Jie's words were not convincing enough, so her previous words were more likely to be a series of lies. Thinking of the fact that she might have gotten angry when she left, it was most likely that Xiao Jia was the one who got angry. Although Xiao Wanru didn't blame Xiao Jia the meaning in her words was very obvious. Moreover, when Shiqi was here now. Although she didn't know why when Shiqi suddenly helped her, it was just right for her, so she immediately seized the opportunity. Old Madam was so angry that she almost wanted to eat Xiao Jia Along the way, none of Xiao Jia's words were reliable. What she said was flustered one after another. Now Xiao Jia was blamed for this. It was useless for Xiao Jia to do this. She wanted Xiao Wanru to take the blame, not to make Xiao Wanru bear the blame. As long as she took the blame, the next thing would be much easier. She had thought that it was just a simple thing. Even if Xiao Jia was not smart, she could do it well. She didn't expect that she would make so many mistakes, and the situation in front of her was even harder to deal with. When Shiqi's words hit Xiao Jia's flaws. Even if old Madam wanted to defend Xiao Jia she could not do so. Jia, is this really related to you? Xiao Jing asked coldly. Father, it's not me. It's none of my business. I really want to find fifth sister. I really. Xiao Jia burst into tears. She didn't know what to say.